Progressive Gentleman podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We are your hosts. I'm Dan.
I'm Matt.
And as always, thank you for the support and for tuning in to listen to us nerd out about music. Man your battle stations, call your mother, whatever you got to do, because we got a special one for you today. If you have listened to the show before, you know that we're slight fans of Coheed Cambria. Would you say just a little bit?
We may have talked about them once or twice.
Just once or twice. But we figured because of how often we've talked about them, we might as well give them like their own episode and try to just purge it from our system.
It's not going to happen, but
it's definitely not going to happen.
At least attempt.
I still am making it my life's goal to include Coheed in every single episode.
Spread the good word.
But we figure they just dropped a new record, Vaxis II, A Window of the Waking Mind. If you've not checked that out, definitely do that. But we figure it's a good time to maybe have this episode and sort of include, a discussion about their entire discography, talk about their background a little bit, but also put in a album review of the new record towards the end. We did put a poll up. And basically it was like, oh, do you want us to do a separate album review episode, or do you want us to just do one big, massive Coheed episode? And the latter kind of won in that poll. So
I didn't actually get to look at the results. I saw that you posted it, but I wasn't sure what the outcome was.
I think it was like 63% of people who
voted
so said
nice,
just do
a good
one
majority
big.
then.
Yeah. So and we didn't vote in our own poll in that one, so that was all. Usually we have an opinion and we're just like, oh, let's see what everyone wants, but also this is what we would rather have happen. But,
yeah, it gives us our own like.
Yeah, but in this instance, I feel like it was kind of just a. We didn't care one way or the other. We saw benefits for both, but
yeah.
But yeah, so this is the route we are going. We're going to do one big episode. I think we're going to talk a little bit about the band's background. We're going to try to avoid, because there's just so much substance, right?
Yeah, we don't want to make it like a 4-hour episode.
Right.
So.
They got, they have 10 full-length records. They have a bunch of side projects that we could dive into. Obviously, we could dive into the concept, the Amory Wars, the Afterman sort of storyline. We could dive into the new Vaxis storyline, all the different nuances that come with having a band that's essentially based in an entire universe. But I think for benefits of time and just trying to get people to actually want to listen to this entire thing.
We gotta make it a little more concise.
Yeah, probably better to keep that lower, not talk about that stuff as much and sort of focus on the music more than anything. I'm sure some of that stuff will probably come up while we're discussing the music, but that's not the focal point here. We kind of want to try to focus on the music aspect of it, but I am a huge Coheed nerd. As are you.
Yeah, you're definitely more so, but I've been really getting into it and like trying to do the extended stuff lately, so I'm like trying to catch up. It's a lot to dig into.
No, it really is. It's a lot, but I do have the Coheed Keywork tattoo and the Dragonfly tattoo and all that stuff. So I know people
wear it as a badge.
have a lot more Coheed pride than me, I suppose. I know some people have entire sleeves and back pieces and all this stuff. I'm not quite that deep into it, but I did take the plunge and got the cult tattoo. So
one of us.
But I think I know some people probably are only interested in the album review. We hope that you'll listen to this entire episode here, but if that's all you're interested in, you could technically scroll that, because we're going to talk about each record, but we're going to talk about them sort of order of release. So we're going to be starting with Second Stage whenever we get there and ending with Vaxis II. So also, if there's a specific record you want to hear our opinions on, you can just use that scroll bar,
scrub and find the album of choice.
Exactly. Alternatively, I know we did just run a contest. Thank you to everybody that participated in that. We will be announcing the winner to that on this podcast. We're going to do that at the end as well, just because we want to start getting into this content, because I know this is going to be an adventure. So we can start with a little bit of background on the band. I guess we could do that. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you are probably already know enough, maybe more than us. Um, but just briefly, the band started as a band called Shibuti, and they sort of morphed into Coheed and Cambria of today.
Shibuti.
The original lineup of Coheed and Cambria consisted of Claudio Sanchez, who, if that's probably the most noteworthy member of the band. If you barely listen to Coheed, most people know who he is.
Yeah, he's a pretty prolific guy.
His voice and his hair are legend. I feel like I've seen several like meme vines back in the day, and then now TikToks of just people with big hair. It's like, is that the Coheed and Cambria guy? So it's like people recognize him. His hair almost has its own personality.
Yeah.
Travis Stever, lead guitarist and absolute monster. Josh Eppard, who is a very underrated drummer, I feel like, in prog rock.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that
He definitely doesn't get enough love.
He really doesn't. I mean, he's not as technical per se as maybe like a Chris Penny, who did come in and fill in for them after Josh briefly exited. But I feel like there's something to be said for a guy that can just sort of stay in the pocket the way that he does. So I think he is an underrated drummer in the prog rock scene. And then the original bass player was Mike Todd, Mick Todd. I've heard it pronounced every other way. I think it's supposed to be pronounced Mike, but I feel like a lot of people pronounce it Mick. I actually did for a long time because it's MIC, which Mike for microphone, but I feel like some people look at it as like Mick Todd. So I've heard it pronounced that way the most. I'm pretty sure it's Mike though. So that was the lineup for the first 3 records, which arguably are the best 3 records. I'm sure some people disagree with that. And we'll discuss our orders personally as well. But yeah, that was the lineup for the first 3 records. Then that's when sort of the band started having some minor issues.
Minor issues is not a side project by them.
Correct. That's when Josh Eppard was having some issues and drugs and things of that nature, which he talks very openly about, and is sort of really, in my opinion, an inspiration to people, I think, who have dealt with those things, because he's so positive about, I've seen him do podcasts and stuff like that, talking about his struggles and
that's cool.
kind of overcoming them. And I think he, his journey with the band and how he, briefly exited and then came back and is just like body positive, just very, just life positive, I feel like now. I think that's a good story, but he did briefly exit the band because of his struggles with drugs. He was replaced by Chris Penny, as I said a little bit ago, who used to be the drummer for Dillinger Escape Plan, which is a legendary prog band.
Awesome band.
Exactly. But for the actual record, No World for Tomorrow, that was when Josh exited, the drums were laid down on the recording by Taylor Hawkins. Rest in peace to him. The drummer from Foo Fighters, which is pretty cool to have such a legendary drummer sort of fill in and kind of help them bridge the gap to Chris Penny. But then that, in my opinion, led to one of their notoriously not as great records, which was Year of the Black Rainbow. I think the drumming on that record is fantastic. But just overall, I feel like, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the discussion about the discography. Overall, I feel like that is just not sort of like the shining light in their discography, and I think most people agree with that. But it does get a little more hate than it deserves, so we can talk about that when we get there. Sorry, I'm kind of just running through all this shit just out of my. I don't have notes, by the way. This is all out of my brain, so if I say something wrong, I'm sorry. So around the time of Year of the Black Rainbow is when another band member with his own struggles with drug abuse robbed a Walgreens.
Oh, jeez.
So Michael Todd, the bass player, got in trouble with the law for robbing a Walgreens, and
that's crazy.
yeah, he had to deal with that situation, legally, obviously, but the band didn't want anything to do with that. So
Yeah, I mean,
it happened in the middle of a tour.
yeah,
So yeah, so that
jeez.
was a big situation. He ended up being replaced by Zach Cooper, who I think has filled the role very well. I believe he was a fan of the band too whenever he came on board. It's kind of hard not to be. I feel like Coheed has such a wide discography, with so many different
Yeah,
sort of genres and song styles and whatever. There's something for everybody in their discography. I've said that forever. Um, but yeah, Zach Cooper came in, filled in, and I think he's been fantastic for the band. There are people that'll argue, Mick Todd is the technical, Mick Todd, Mike Todd, Michael Todd, whatever, is the more technical, like the better bass player just from a overarching skill perspective. But I don't necessarily, I think the bass playing, just the entire rhythm section, in my opinion, on the new record is some of the best that
yeah,
we've seen on any, granted, I know a lot of people will probably be unhappy with the level of synths and stuff like that, like the different layers that they use, the different effects that they use in the new record, but I really think it's some of Josh Epard's best work.
yeah.
Um,
It's
and Zach really does his thing on both Vaxis records, in my opinion. So,
yeah.
um,
I honestly like because I'm not quite as familiar with the lineup changes, so I honestly like didn't really even notice a huge difference
right.
in them. But I'm more am like
Some,
just listen to the music, and
yeah,
I've just recently delved into like lineups, side
yeah.
projects and
I
all that
think
stuff.
I think one of the best records from like a rhythm section perspective is Good Apollo one, and I really think Josh Epard and Mick Todd, Mike Todd, Michael Todd. I'm just gonna say all three of them. Really get busy on that record, but I do think this new record is probably some of the best work I've seen from Josh, and Zach really does this thing on this record too. So,
Yeah,
um, but yeah, and eventually, obviously, as people know who follow the band now, Josh Shepard does rejoin the band right around the Afterman time frame. Um, I read or I saw an interview or something like that where when during his quote unquote audition, which I feel like if they're willing to audition Josh Epard, an original member, they're basically just bringing him in to say, hopefully you're interested in this because we would probably love to have you back, especially if you've cleaned up and all this stuff, which he obviously has. Um, but I read or watched an interview that the song that they showed him was Gravity's Union.
hmm.
And he just started drumming along to it. And that's honestly one of my favorite Coheed songs, especially off the Afterman dual records, because they do stand alone. Um, but yeah, I guess that was one of, and he really, I feel like, put his stamp on that track as well. I know a lot of people were like, you can't replace Chris Penny with and bring Josh Epard back because of how technical a drummer Chris Penny is, but that was all the people that said that were like, that's crazy to me. I mean, like Josh Epard's like his style of drumming just fits perfectly with Coheed's flavor of music. So,
Yeah,
um, but yeah, so Josh Epard comes back right before the Afterman records, puts his stamp on those records, in my opinion, and now the lineup has been the same ever since. So we're basically set now with Claudio, rhythm guitar / kind of lead stuff as well, and vocals, obviously. Uh, Travis at lead guitar also does some backing vocals. Zach Cooper, same situation, bass and does some backing vocals, and Josh Epard can sing too, and plays drums. So,
yeah,
uh,
yeah. Quite a
so there's the backstory. I don't know if I said that they're from not like Nyack, New York area is kind of where they came up, but that's where they came up. Um, Side projects, because this is it's I could spend so much time. Uh, so Prizefighter Inferno is Claudio's side project. He came out with My Brother's Blood Machine, which was like a full length record that was kind of more in the vein of what Coheed sounds like, but also with like a lot of electronica mixed in. But I felt like that record was a very hybrid record from what Prizefighter Inferno exists as now. versus like how it started versus like what Coheed is. Like there's that record is kind of like an in between. You get some songs that you could be like that could be on a Coheed record.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it does seem like a kind of just like not that big of a leap away from Coheed's,
yeah,
the core Coheed stuff.
for sure. And honestly, you get I mean it's Claudio, and Claudio sort of is. I mean it's not fair to say he is Coheed, but for the most part he is Coheed. So
Yeah, I think just
anything
because he's like the face of it,
right, and I
like,
mean like you think about what makes Coheed stand out. And really, it is him. I mean, he has such a unique voice that when you hear it, you know it's Coheed and Cambria. I mean,
yeah.
there are other vocalists that have sort of that high register, which it has gone down a little bit. Like it's not a like second stage era Claudio
Oh yeah, yeah. It
versus
is
like
like,
Vaxis era Claudio. Um, very different registers, and I think they even tune down for some of the older songs when they play them live now.
oh really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, but regardless, even now, his voice is still very recognizable. You know, it's not. It's in the same vein as like your Anthony Green's, you know, Circa Survive type stuff, Seosin, Seocean, however that's pronounced stuff.
Yeah,
Um, Good Tiger, if you want to talk about modern stuff.
yeah. Good Tiger.
Some Tesseract ish stuff. You know, your Daniel Tompkins, like people with higher register
Yeah,
voices, but his is just very unique, especially like the way he phrases when he sings. Nobody does that. I mean,
yeah,
maybe some like it's weird. Like there are some songs you'll be listening to and it's like, is he singing in like a British accent? Like what exactly like how does I'm curious where he like gets the inspiration from his phrasing, like whether it was some kind of like vocal coaching or something that just you know you can hit these notes better if you phrase it this way or so. I'm just curious how that came to be because he
yeah,
doesn't talk like that. You know what I mean?
yeah. I have noticed like the way he pronounces stuff
Yeah, it's
differently when he's
very
singing,
interesting.
and it's like was wondering because I don't think I've ever actually watched like interviews, and I haven't been to a show to actually like hear him speak.
Right.
It's only been through his music, like from recorded stuff. So like I was
Yeah.
just like, does he talk like this, or is it like just purely his vocal performance and stuff?
Yeah, I really think like just based on my interactions with him and uh I really think that it's some way that he, you know, learned to hit those notes or something. I'm not 100% sure, but the phrasing and such is very unique and I think that's what makes him stand out.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
But yeah, so I guess we can probably move on from the Prize Fighter Inferno and talk about. I mean, can we? They also have a bunch of EPs, singles. Like he's released a lot of different music under that moniker, um, and it has gotten like more electronic sort of as he's progressed. I guess that's kind of where we were at. So yeah, My Brother's Blood Machine very much sort of an in between. Then like smaller like EPs like the Half Measures EP I think is still semi like in the middle, but there's a lot more electronic stuff on that. Um, but like the song Half Measures itself very much to me sounds like it could be a Coheed track.
Yeah, yeah. Prizefighter Inferno, I've like started in the like I don't know, maybe last year. I've been like digging into them more, but there's just like because there's so much Coheed stuff. It's like the side projects I've not dabbled
Yeah.
in quite as much. So you
Yeah.
definitely have more to talk
Yeah,
towards for the side projects than I do.
I'm trying not to like get too wrapped up in the side projects cuz like we could probably do like mini episodes about each one of those too. So we're just
Yeah,
going to move on. So yeah, Claudio's sort of electronica like borderline Coheed-ish side project Prize Fighter Inferno. Um Josh Eppard Weird Science. That's sort of like a hip hop rap side project for him that is actually very cool. It started off just as like normal kind of underground ish rap, but then the Red Light Juliet sort of storyline that he built, and I think that's across 3 records. I'm not I think it is. It's across 3 records because then he released a trilogy vinyl with all
oh, that's
3.
cool.
Um, that those records for me are extremely like captivating. It's cool, like the storyline that he builds, like this entity that visits him and like has visited his family and is visiting his kids now and all this. Like it's just that's such a cool
It's like
sort of
prog rap.
yeah. It's cool to have a concept sort of built into even into his hip hop
Yeah,
side
that is
project.
really unique. I think that's something that's like missing from a lot of other music genres is like the concept album.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think that's a cool
Yeah.
idea, and like the few songs that I've listened to, I enjoy it too. I don't listen to a lot of hip hop, but that is like his style is something that I definitely like I would dig into and would
Yeah, and
enjoy.
and I listen to like relatively similar like underground hip hop rap artists like Jedi Mind Tricks, Vinny Paz. That's kind of his project, and like Army of the Fair. Really, everything that Vinny Paz does for some reason. If you've never listened to him, Season of the Assassin is a fantastic like underground hip hop
I'll
rap
have to check that
record.
out.
Really good. But yeah, he's kind of in the same vein as that style. So I connect with that because I was already listening to relatively similar music. But yeah, I don't want to get too far into the side project. So Travis had a side project called Davenport Cabinet as well, which is kind of like a folk rock type situation. I know he has at least two. They have at least two records. I don't know if there's more than that. I do like the music. It's very relaxed, chill, just sort of right down the line rock with like a folk maybe vibe to it.
This is one I haven't heard of at all.
Yeah.
Out of like I had heard of Weird Science and like just dabbled in a little
Yeah.
bit to like get a feel for it. But and like Prize Fighter Inferno a little more, but I had never heard of this side project. So this is something I'll have to check out because it
Yeah,
sounds
it's
cool.
it's very cool. It's very like chill, sit around the fire, listen to it kind of music in my opinion. Um the band I was trying to come up with a comp and I really couldn't. I mean, there's probably a lot. It's like I said, it's kind of straight down the line rock with a little bit of a folk vibe, but for some reason Mumford and Sons came to mind, but it's not as like much of a production, I feel like, as Mumford and Sons with all
Okay,
the
but like similar, like
yeah.
for fans of
Right.
kind of
Yeah,
deal.
I would say like if you like Mumford and Sons, you would probably like some of that
I'll
Davenport
definitely
Cabinet
have to
stuff.
check that out.
Um and yeah, I mean there's also sort of the band's side project, which wow, am I drawing a blank on the name? It's Travis is the lead singer. Oh, what the heck is it? He goes by Cleveland Stever or something in it. Oh my god, why am I drawing a blank? It'll pop into my head. But it's just more of like a joke than anything else.
Like
Why
a
am I
comedy
struggling?
type thing.
Yeah. Fill some air here. Give me one second.
You checking the thing? Yeah, this is another side project that I did not know existed either. So I'm curious to see and hear about
Children of the Deuce. I found it.
Children of the Deuce.
Fire Deuce is the name of the band. Children of the Deuce is their most recent like EP. Wow, did I struggle to figure that out? I apologize. For me, it's their weirdest project. I know a lot of people like it. It's a little strange. I'm not, I appreciate it for what it is, and I appreciate that like all of the band members sort of take on like an alter ego for the songs.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, and they did a with the VIP stuff for their tours and stuff. They do
Yeah.
like an early entry thing, and the one tour they did an early entry as Fire Deuce, and they all wear costume. It's
Oh,
real
really?
funny. Yeah. Musically, it's probably my least favorite of the side projects, but which is why I struggled to remember the name because I do not listen to it really.
regularly. Yeah.
But it is cool and it's intriguing and it's part of the Coheed lore, and it's a very interesting situation. So it's worth looking into.
I'll have to check
If
it
you've
out.
not listened to Fire Deuce, definitely check it out. There's probably other like little side projects that exist. Claudio with his wife started a side project called Shawnee and Clyde.
Oh yeah, yeah.
and they released music under that moniker, which was kind of cool. I do like some of the like prize fighter stuff too that includes Johnny like on vocals. I feel like and if you've listened to prior episodes of our podcast, you'll know that I'm kind of a sucker for like a female vocal
Yeah, like the
like
layer, like
mixed like
duet kind
layer.
of
Yeah,
thing.
I really enjoy that. Um so that's another project worth checking out, but honestly, I think we should just start diving into the music because I could just keep talking about random bullshit for a long time. So, what do you think? You want to
Yeah,
just dive in
let's
here?
get into it.
All right.
So
So,
starting with the second stage turbine blade.
yes. So, this record is iconic. I feel like this is the one that gets them associated with like the emo genre a lot, which drives me insane. Um because in my opinion, emo music is derived from the lyrical aspect of music. Um, emotional lyrics is
Yeah,
essentially where emo is derived from. And for me, they're not singing like it's all based in a concept. So like I look at it as a song sort of based essentially a soundtrack to a fictional story.
yeah,
Like how can you deem that as like emo, I guess. I don't know, like that's my internal sort of
yeah. I guess like
battle.
it like from the sound,
From a
I can
sound
see how
perspective,
people
like
would throw it in there,
sure.
but also like that's kind of my thing too is that it's a concept, so it's not like the album's not about like being angsty and like
Right.
angry and stuff. It's a fictional world.
And I know people will push back and say, well, oh, I mean, it's a fictional world based on Claudio's like reality. Like he wrote this as sort of as like a veil to his reality. Like, and I get that. That's fine. Like,
Yeah,
but isn't that all art in like a lot of ways? Like a lot of films were written, from the perspective of the person writing the screenplay. That's like, oh, this is written about the whatever part of my childhood or whatever. Like, I don't know. I guess maybe you could still say, well, yeah, well, the lyrics still have like an emotional,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I
I
could
don't
kind of
know,
see an argument
tone.
like either like for either like it being thrown in the emo category or not. I personally don't really throw it in there.
No, I
Like it
don't
has
either.
some like emo adjacent sound to it, but like there's also a lot of like post-hardcore bands that I wouldn't necessarily throw in the emo category
No,
either, but they have like emo category flavors to them
sure.
and stuff. So, I think like it's kind of its own
Yeah. I
thing.
mean, like, I get, Devil in Jersey City has that, like, emo style vibe to it, just as from the perspective of the song, like the way that it sounds compared to other emo bands in that time, just focusing specifically on the musical aspect of it.
Yeah.
Like, um, but that's really the only. I don't know. I don't see anything emo really about it. But I guess like the whole like paper cut my heart in half and discard the evidence, or like stuff like I get it, or what's the other big one, like pull the trigger and the nightmare stops. Like, all right, like
Yeah.
I get it, but it's all based in a concept, so that's where I'm sticking to. But I do get the argument, but I don't like it. um
I mean, I don't really care either way because I also listen to plenty of emo music, so
Yeah, I mean,
doesn't bother
same. It used
me
to
either
bother
way.
me because I was very anti emo, but then my wife and I will like be cleaning the house listening to like the emo forever playlist or whatever
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Spotify. So, I
We've
mean,
we've taken many me and my wife have taken many road trips and listened to like
yeah,
the emo playlist on
right.
Spotify and like just, singing to MCR and
Yeah, it just brings you back, to our kind of emo phase, even though I feel like when I'll speak for myself, when I was in my quote unquote emo phase, I hated anything that was referent. Like I hated when someone's like, "Oh, that's screamo, that's emo." I was like, "No, it's not."
Yeah.
But like looking back at it, some of it, it's like, maybe it was. But I'll die on the hill that Coheed is not emo. I will die on that hill.
I mean, I would say like even if you make the argument that Second Stage Turbine Blade was an emo album, I definitely think they've very much like removed themselves from that
Yeah, I
category
mean,
now.
I look at Second Stage as like their purest post-hardcore ish record. Like it's the most raw sounding. Um,
I feel like
it's
that's
the
probably
most
why
yeah, it's the
they
most
throw
like
it.
attempted like quote unquote heavy. You get a lot of sort of relatively poor, um, harsh vocals, for lack of a better word.
The like
We
those
are
like pterodactyl
yeah,
screeches in
which
there that
I'm pretty
are
sure that's
deafening.
some of the, like on Hearshot Kid Disaster where it just opens with that like squeal,
Yeah.
which is definitely Claudio. Nobody else is screaming that high. But yeah, I mean honestly, just we can go down this sort of track by track, but like so the Second Stage Turbine Blade track is just the intro. It sort of introduces that like that reoccurring theme that you hear sort of throughout some of the early Coheed records, and then Time Consumer. I love the way that track starts.
Yeah, Time Consumer,
Um,
that's actually like I made like jotted down notes of like favorite tracks, and that
yeah,
was one of the ones that I like
yeah,
immediately was like, this going on here.
it's a classic. You know, that's one of the ones that's quoted quite often. A lot of these tracks, really. I mean, Devil in Jersey City. That's always one that I feel like fans gravitate towards, especially the ones that are bigger fans of like pop Coheed. Love
Yeah.
Devil in Jersey City. Um, Everything Evil. I mean, everything on Delirium Trigger. Jeez. I mean,
Yeah, that was for me. Time Consumer, Delirium Trigger, and Never Ender were like the three. I tried to like just so I had some like distinguishing of instead of being
yeah.
like every song is my favorite. I tried to pick like three from
Yeah.
two or three from each album, and those were the three for me that are like kind of
Yeah.
standout
I guess
songs.
I guess talking about every track would just be too lengthy. So if we want to do that, so 33 for me is one of the best songs on the record. Never Ender and then Godsend Conspirator. I think Godsend Conspirator is the best track on that record, and there's so many good songs on this record. Um, but it's sort of the first introduction to their um I would say it's probably close to maybe the proggiest song on Second Stage.
Yeah, I like that song too. That was just like I tried to make my own rule of like three songs or less.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally get that.
So that like Godsend Conspirator would have been like my honorable mention song on that
Right.
one.
Yeah. I really like how like they do the sort of the build up endings. And they do that in other songs too, like Light in the Glass. They do that. 2113. They do like just the where it builds up, and then there's sort of like the different layered vocal tracks going on. Like you see that in some of the Willingwell tracks. Just some of their longer proggier songs. I really I I don't see Godsend Conspirator in enough people's like top 10 Coheed song lists. I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like it's I don't know if it's just because it's on their first record and people look at the more popular songs quote unquote on the first record, whether that be Favor House or not Favor House, sorry, Devil in Jersey City or Delirium Trigger or Time Consumer even. Never Ender's always a big one because that's what they were naming their like that big tour that they did where they played all of their records in its entirety in like 4 different cities or whatever. And now every time they do like a full album tour, they call it like, it's the In Keeping Secrets Never Ender tour. It's the Good Apollo Never Ender tour. Like they now name their like full record tours
Yeah.
after that.
And the cruise thing they do now is called the the ship's the
Yeah,
SS
yep,
Never Ender,
exactly.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like their like big name
Yeah.
thing.
So I could see a lot of people including that because of that.
That's a
But
cool
yeah,
name too.
for me, Godsend Conspirator is the highlight on that record, followed by Neverender and 33. I think those are,
Yeah, those are solid ones too.
yeah. So and yeah, Neverender is a good track to sort of focus on whenever they were naming their tours after that, because that track is fantastic, and also Neverender. It's never ending. I like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, second stage overall very raw, very post hardcore ish. I guess there's emo vibes, but
That's the rawness is what makes this like not hit my top three. Is like if they re-recorded this like modern
I don't
and like
want them
made it
to.
less raw, I think like it would end up being in my top three for sure.
I
But
think like how raw it is, but still how like good it is for being their first full length record under the Coheed and Cambria moniker, and having songs like Godsend and Neverender and 33 still sort of, and Delirium Trigger and Time Consumer, like all these songs still sort of stand out in their discography to me.
yeah,
I would hate if I don't want them to
really,
re-record this. I don't want it remastered. I want it to stay the way it is. I just, for me, I feel like it would take away from, in my opinion, what kind of makes the record great, is sort of the rawness to it. Especially like that rawness is sort of ingrained in like a lot of early post-hardcore music anyways. Like that's kind of like a staple of like early 2000s post-hardcore.
yeah. It's I don't know. There's something about like for me like. I don't like stuff to be overproduced and stuff, but now like going back and listening to some older albums, it is just kind of like it's a little tougher to listen to this because you have like all these other great albums by this band
Yeah,
that have like better production quality. So like that's why for me that I would love to have like kind of a redo of it.
I got you.
But I mean even still like I put this at my fourth spot. So like it's still very very high on
Yeah.
my list even, so I kind of took that into consideration that like
Yeah,
it still sounds great even though it's a, 20-year-old album.
sure. So, moving on to what a lot of people will say is sort of their pinnacle, like their best record. A lot of people would say is "In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3."
Yeah.
Um, I love this record. I actually, whenever I first became the first time I ever heard Coheed and Cambria was this record, um, and I hated it. Is that
Really?
funny? Yeah. So I didn't. To be fair, the songs that I was shown at that time was Favor House Atlantic and Blood Red Summer. Whoever introduced me to Coheed at that time, and I don't know who it was, and because I had so many friends that listened to Coheed at that time. I mean,
Yeah.
our high school, for some reason I don't understand, had a lot of people that liked Coheed and Cambria.
Yeah, there was a big
Yeah,
like group of
I re-
us that were all like pretty into it. I mean, I was like a late joiner, like
yeah,
everyone else kind of like told me about it
I
and
was an outsider saying that it was stupid, but I remember like sitting in our auditorium during like a study hall or something, and a group of uh, some of the people that were in our graduating class were passing around the original Good Apollo like paperback book that they
yeah.
released, like the graphic novel, um, and I think that like seeing that anyway. So yeah, I was shown Favor House and Blood Red Summer by somebody, and I hated it. I hated both songs. I thought it
That's
was annoying. It was just like too poppy, and like I didn't get the voice. I just didn't get anything at that point. Um, Ultimately, I changed my mind about Coheed when Good Apollo was released, and hearing Welcome Home and then the Willing Wells tracks is what ultimately made me become a fan, and then go back to explore the older records. This one being the first one that I re-explored, and I started it from the beginning, which is what I should have did. I should have never just like. But back then you didn't have Spotify.
yeah.
Like I couldn't just go in and hit like play from the start. Like somebody gave me two illegally LimeWire downloaded like
Allegedly.
songs, right? Allegedly, yeah. We don't. There's can't confirm. But they gave me these two songs, and I'm like, what is this? And at that point, I was listening to like Kill Switch Engage and like
Yeah,
things
there
like
was
that,
definitely
which
some
where
of
I
that for
felt
me
like, but I was
too.
also listening to like Atreyu and like bands like that. I don't know, like that was kind of what I was listening to at the time, and I was like, oh, I'm a metalhead. I mean, whatever. But I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I'm not listening to this garbage. But
Yeah, it's kind of like that metal elitism. They're
right,
like, I'm
yeah,
into metalcore, and like,
right,
I don't want to listen to your rock stuff.
exactly.
And
Like I was listening to
it's
like
like dumb high school
Thrill
stuff.
Seeker and like Messenger's era, like August Burns Red.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. To me, I was just like, oh, this isn't what I'm into. But Welcome Home and then the Willing Wells sort of scratched the itch enough to get me to explore the rest of the stuff. And starting this record from the beginning and having it lead into In Keeping Secrets and just listening to sort of that epic song, because it really is. It's hard to put other Coheed songs above this one for me. I have, but it took a lot. This is, in my opinion, and you've never seen the band live.
Yeah, no, not yet.
So this is, in my opinion, something that I hope you get to experience, which, I've seen them in the 20s now, somewhere in the 20s times. And I've seen way too many concerts at this point. I've probably spent way too much money going to shows. And I'll stand by that the like vocal like the crowd participation, like the vocal crowd participation when they play this song, whether it's like the part where everybody chants like "Man, your own jackhammer" or like the
Yeah.
whoa-ohs at the end. Um,
It does seem like a
just
really good like crowd
oh yeah, the crowd
hype up.
participation on this song when it's played live is like second to none in the live setting.
I really hope they play this because this is actually In Keeping Secrets. Like the title track is my favorite song
Yeah,
by them.
it's definitely the strongest song. I mean, 2113 is so powerful too, and so is The Crowing. Like, I mean, there's a lot of very good songs. The entire Camper Valerium suite, Faint of Hearts and Back End of Forever do not get enough like
Yeah,
recognition.
they're really
Especially
good.
like Back End of Forever, I feel like gets buried because anytime somebody mentions a Camper Valerium track, I always feel like it's Faint of Hearts or Al the Killer. And in my opinion, Al the Killer is the weaker of the three, and I feel like that's normally one that people are like, "Oh, this is the best one." Back End of Forever is so good. Um, like the whole sort of like slight shift from like when it goes into the like I have no luck with girls, and then it goes into the chorus, like that like transition, and just the chorus is so powerful, and it's a very underrated track. But obviously the big ones on this record is In Keeping Secrets, the title track, and then The Crowing. Those were the big ones that I gravitated towards when I came back to listen to this record after I decided, well, maybe Coheed isn't that bad. And fast forward how many years later? I don't even want to think about it. What is it? Has it been like 15, 20 years later?
Well, since the release of Keeping
Well,
Secrets, or since
so
you started?
it would have technically been since the release of Good Apollo, I guess. Would have been like when I finally became a fan. But still, that's what 2005. So
Like
that's
17
been
years.
Jesus. Uh, we're
Yeah.
freaking old, dude.
I know. I was going through and like listening to like looking at the albums, like the release dates and stuff, and I was like, I can't believe
Yeah,
how old these albums are.
I
And
know.
I was like, oh my
So
God, I feel so
crazy.
old.
But yeah, I mean, fast forward 17 years later. God, that hurts to say. Now I'm just looking around this room we're in right now.
We are
There's
surrounded by
there's two
Coheed.
Coheed flags hanging there. There's a Coheed poster signed. I got two Coheed vinyls framed, one prize fighter vinyl framed. I got a big like wood
You could
sign.
say you're a fan.
Yeah, I got a big wood sign thing that my wife had made for me for a one. I don't remember if it was a birthday or if it was an anniversary. It was some kind of gift from her, which is really cool. I got my Call Your Mother mask over on my lamp there. I got my, what's this thing called? The Cantillon speaker lamp thing? Is that what that's
Yeah,
called?
from
I got
the
that
Vaxis
sitting
2
on my
box
desk
set.
here. Yeah, like just really trying to feel those Coheed vibes. But yeah, so I mean, fast forward 17 years, I went from, I guess, 20 years ago, I hated the band to not hated, but just wasn't into it. And now I'm like tattoos and all
Yeah.
this shit. So, yeah, but those two tracks, In Keeping Secrets and The Crowing, really like, I was like, okay, there's more that I like. And then I went back to Second Stage, Never Ender and Godsend. And, I was like, okay, I like this. And then at the time, I kind of called it my guilty pleasure band. I still kind of do, to be honest. Although now I listen to a lot more prog rock. It's probably not the case anymore. But when I was
Yeah.
strictly a metalhead, I could still, especially after the first time I saw them live, I could still get into the songs like Blood Red Summer and Favor House and all that stuff live
Yeah,
because
it's funny. Like my music taste for Coheed is just like all over the place. Like my list of favorites from here are, the title track, and then Favorite House Atlantic and The Crowing. So it's like those are the
yeah,
three that I picked out, and it's kind of like
2113, dude.
yeah, twenty one
That's
thirteen is
one of
really
the
good
most.
too.
I mean, it's so long, but like the Light in the Glass and 2113 just is everything I love in a Coheed song. The different style changes, the different like tempo changes, the like callbacks to previous songs from this record, other records, whatever. Like they give you sort of those like Easter eggs within tracks. Like I
Yeah,
love that stuff. They do that in the Willing Well. We'll talk about that in the next record that we talk about. But like they do that in the Willing Wells. Callbacks to just other. It's cool and like you see that a lot with bands that do concept records. But I don't know, just the way that they do it. I very much enjoy. Like you hear something and it's like, oh, I've heard that before. This is great. Like
yeah.
it's so weird. Um,
I
that
do.
I
I
get
love
that
how
excited
much
about it. Maybe
Coheed does that with like the Easter eggs. It's like
even in the new Vaxis record with
yeah,
like the callbacks to
Old Flames.
yeah, Old Flames. Like
That was as soon as the intro song started playing, like I got excited because I'm like, I know that song, and it's like just having
yeah.
that moment of like, and it starts off the album that way. It's like,
And then it
oh,
ends
this is
the
gonna
album
be good.
too,
Yeah,
which is. But
yeah,
again,
bookends.
we're getting ahead of ourselves. But still, that I mean, it's cool that and it's really kind of a prog band thing. I know other bands do it that aren't necessarily considered prog, but it's more commonplace, I think, in progressive music.
Yeah, I think that's what lends Coheed to have such a like cult following is because it's like the more you know about the band and like their like the books and all of that stuff, the more you get out of their music and you
Yeah,
get like samples from other songs like little Easter eggs or like callbacks to like stuff from the comics or the books and
right.
like all of that crossing over is just like oh, I see what you did there. And it's like,
Yeah,
it's just such a
especially
cool feeling while it's like an additional element beyond like normal, like just listening to music and feeling the lyrics. It's
yeah.
like, I also remember that part from the book or,
And they
whatever.
mention a character, then you start to sort of grasp the concept within the music, which I know the Amory Wars story itself is relatively not like hard to follow, but it's a little bit like, especially the earlier ones. I know now, like with the Good Apollo comics, and I know Chandra's very involved with those, writing, sort of gathering all of the thoughts and the stuff from Claudio, and then like sort of putting it out into like the comic form. And I know she wrote the Vaxis books as well. Chandra did,
Oh, okay.
Claudio's wife. It's his story, but like I'm pretty sure she did the
I
writing.
know that they both worked on it together. I didn't
Yeah.
know like who did what
I do
exactly.
think since she is kind of, and this is not a knock on Claudio or the original stories or anything, but I do think that since she's sort of taking over in some capacity, that I do think the writing's a lot more um, like easier to follow. I don't even know if that's fair, but I think like the story is a lot more like understandable. Like you can understand kind of what's happening a little bit more, and that's coming from a person who really didn't read a whole lot of comics until I adapted my Coheed sort of obsession. Now I read other comics and stuff too here and there, and I do enjoy it. So I think maybe
See, I'm coming from the other way. Like I've read so many comics, but I have never read the Coheed ones. So like I really want to get into them, but it's just
right.
like it is
Yeah,
quite
you
an
just
undertaking. I'm joining in like super late, and it's like oh my
yeah
god,
you
there's so many.
you borrowed my Year of the Black Rainbow book. You just read that,
Yeah,
so
it was really good.
yeah.
I enjoyed it
So
a lot.
we'll get you the second
So
stage. I have the ultimate editions for the.
that's it.
I also have the individual comics if you prefer to read it that way, but I
Yeah, I
have
mean
the
either
ultimate
way.
editions.
But yeah, I tried reading like the Vaxis II book from the box set, like having not read anything other than Year of the Black Rainbow, and I was like page 2, and I'm like, I don't know what is going on. I'm so
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah, it's the Vaxis story stands alone, but also the whole comment about and I've not read the new book, the book from the box set. I've just not had time. I was on vacation last week. I just haven't
Yeah,
had
well, it
time,
just came out
and it
a
did
week
just
ago.
come out, right? But he does sort of hint that it's the comment in the intro for Dark Sentence, the prologue on Vaxis 1, where it's like far into our future yet far beyond our past or something like that. Like
Yeah.
you can tell that it's going to loop in, you know, past stories and then sort of how it's going to progress to the future or whatever. Like I'm very intrigued to see. I know some. I'm not going to say anything, but I know, just because I don't want to spoil anything, but I do know some things that happen in the book, so that makes me more excited to read it.
Yeah.
But
I really want to like get into it, but it's like hard to find them, so I'll just have to borrow
yeah,
yours and
yeah,
work through
I
it.
got them. I got them all right there on that shelf. So
I'll take one home with me.
there you go. But yeah. So, anyways, back to the music. So, 2113 to me is a track that, since it was kind of a quote unquote hidden track, maybe it doesn't get as much love. But for me, that's a top 3, top 4 track on this record, and probably like top 5% in all of Coheed songs, in my opinion. So,
It is a solid track.
yeah,
It was hard like when I was picking them, and I think mostly like the reasoning for my 3 being Favorite House Atlantic, The Crowing, and Keeping Secrets Silent are 3 is because like those were the ones that I was introduced
yeah,
to them, and so like those ones have like kind of the more nostalgia to them.
right.
And so they kind of are like my go-to jams off of that
Yeah,
album. But there's just so many other good ones.
it would
Like
be really hard to pick 4 for me, or 3 for me, because In Keeping Secrets, The Crowing, Faint of Hearts, Back into Forever, Light in the Glass, and 2113 are all like
yeah,
huge songs for me. Um, but yeah, obviously In Keeping Secrets, and then I would honestly go Crowing, and then 2113, and then Light in the Glass as like a honorable mention for the 4th, just because I love the way that song builds, and I love the way that it ends with like the harmonized different versions of the vocal, like the Pray for Us All, and like that whole like section at the end is just so epic.
yeah,
And like I'm really upset that that's not in my top 3. So, but it's hard to take the other ones out because the Crowing is so good, and In Keeping Secrets is such a powerful song. It's just that whole record is so good.
yeah,
But moving on to another really, really freaking good record, and the record that made me love Coheed and Cambria.
yeah. This was the one where for me too. There was like I started listening to them in their in Keeping Secrets, but there was like this album was like, oh yeah, I there's really something here, and then that made me like kind of go back and listen to their older albums and like appreciate them more. And like this was kind of like the turning point for me where like, yep, I'm definitely a Coheed fan. I'm all in.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, yeah, like I said, I was not a fan, and then all of a sudden I was, because I saw YouTube, or not a YouTube video, because that wasn't something that I was doing, I don't think, back then. But um, I was watching like Fuse. I think I've told this story before, but I was watching Fuse, which is like almost like an MTV ripoff, and the video from Welcome Home came on, and I didn't know it was Coheed, but it went pretty hard, and I was like, this is pretty sweet. And then I saw it was Coheed, how they like flash the thing in the bottom, and
Yeah.
obviously Claudio's hair is unmistakable, but and Josh Shepard's like faces on the drums, I was just like, oh, they were just so into it. I was like, this is great. I ended up buying the CD and really getting into this record. The Willingwell Suite is so freaking good. Some of the best prog music ever written, in my opinion. I just love how complex and all the different time changes and tempo changes and style changes and stuff that I just love about prog music. Everything is in those tracks.
Yeah. It is like this was another one that was really hard to only pick 3.
Yeah, I don't think I could. Welcome Home obviously is an amazing song, and I feel like it gets a lot of hate, Not hate necessarily. I just feel like because it has like 100 million streams and it's the song that
Yeah, it's
is
the
the,
popular
it was
one.
on
So
Rock Band or Guitar Hero, one of those two.
it was Rock Band. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's the one that is played at stadiums, and it was like the Super Bowl song the one year, and you go to an NHL arena
Wasn't that
today.
song also on that movie Nine?
It
That
was, yeah. Or
yeah.
was it Welcome Home? Yeah,
I
I
was
think
thinking that
so.
it was like in the trailer
Yeah.
is it played it. That
Yeah, but like that song sort of
that song being on there was what made me watch that movie actually. Uh but
but honestly, I mean, without this song, I don't know if Coheed would have been sort of catapulted to as big as they are.
yeah.
They're still not like, you don't turn on your local rock station and hear a Coheed song, right? They're still not,
Yeah, it is funny though
very
because like
mainstream.
Welcome Home I feel like I did hear
It could have
like
been.
on our like the X, radio
Yeah,
station.
it definitely could have been.
But then like before and after that, it's like no longer like that. They're just like they don't put them on the radio, and which is just like it's honestly strange to me because like you look at the number of monthly listeners that they have on Spotify, and like pretty much every one of their songs has more than 1 million plays. So it's surprising to me that they aren't like a radio band. It's like they have to be one of the most listened to like not radio bands.
Definitely. Yeah. I think they have a lot of mainstream appeal, especially because of how vast their catalog is and how many different styles, like I've said on this podcast and others, they have something for everyone. I
Yeah.
truly feel that way. That's why the fan base, I feel like, is as, for lack of a better word, like volatile against each other as they are, because there are people that love Coheed for their pop sound. There are people that love Coheed for their prog sound, for their, you
And there's
know,
just me here along for the ride for all of it, and just
and
like
so
I love it all.
you see a lot of times whenever a new tour is announced or whatever, uh, the openers get a lot of shit because Coheed will tour with, they'll tour with a band like Taking Back Sunday, and then they'll tour with a band like Between the Buried and Me. So it's like people who are more into the pop side of Coheed would be really pumped for the Taking Back Sunday tour, where the
Yeah.
people who are into like the prog or like the slightly heavier sounding Coheed would be more into the Between the Buried and Me. And then the crossover doesn't exist there. So then you get a lot of people who are like, what is this garbage whenever Between the Buried and Me is opening? And then vice versa. I mean, everybody knows who Taking Back Sunday is, but if you're a metal fan or like a heavier Coheed fan or a prog Coheed fan, you're probably not as excited for that. So then you see a lot of clashing on the fan pages. Like,
It's funny because if like all three bands toured together, that'd be like awesome in my opinion. I'd be all on board for that.
that would be very weird. But I wouldn't not go.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I've just like that's kind of feeds into like the like emo pop punk stuff
Right,
that Taking Back Sunday that I still enjoy, but then also like the Between the Bear to Me, like the prog metal that I very much enjoy.
right. Yeah,
But I'm the odd man out, I think, in this situation. That I'd be
I
all on board for
honestly,
that.
I like a lot of like I like a mix when it comes to Coheed stuff. Like just continuing on like with Good Apollo, uh, I like Welcome Home obviously has a lot of mainstream appeal, but I think it's a great song. But then I also like Wake Up, which is a very
It's time to
slow
wake
song,
up.
right? And then like The Suffering is kind of more like that in that pop heed vein, but it's got like more sort of pep in its step, I think, compared to some of their other poppy
Yeah.
songs. So I feel like I get into that song as well. And then obviously the epic Willingwell tracks at the end. And Apollo 1, the writing writer, and then you get the callback in Willingwell 3, which is Apollo 2. Just the long names are just crazy, but
Yeah, this
it's such a prog thing to do though, and I love it. This
yeah.
this record for me, I think, is my favorite Coheed record, because I would probably put like Fuel for the Feeding End and From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness. Also, The Telling Truth, like the whole Willingwell suite is probably in my top 10 Coheed songs.
Yeah, like this is one where like I typically listen to it like from front to back and don't really skip anything. And it's not just like, oh, well they're all like pretty good. It's just like they're all just fantastic.
Right.
So I definitely agree that I think this is my favorite Coheed album just because the number of awesome songs on it, and like even like the worst song on here is still like just crazy fantastic song. So
Yeah. I would say that I don't skip any songs on this record, but I do. And it's Always and Never.
so you'd be a liar.
I don't. Yeah, I don't listen to Always and Never. I never really got it as like. I mean, I get it maybe from like a story perspective, but I never really got it sort of how it fit in the record. You have an intro track of Keeping the Blade, which is similar to your intro tracks on Second Stage and in Keeping Secrets. And then Always and Never is almost kind of, with its length and just the style of song, kind of an intro track. So you almost
Yeah.
have like back to back short intro caliber tracks, and then it leads into your epic, which is Welcome Home. Where,
Yeah.
in Keeping Secrets, you have, the intro track leading into In Keeping Secrets, which is your epic track on that record. Um, I don't know. And then you have the intro track into Time Consumer on Second Stage. I just felt like it kind of always felt out of place for me, which wasn't enough to lower the quality of this record, because
Yeah, I
this
mean, if
record
you're
is
only skipping
amazing.
one song that's
Yeah.
2.5 minutes long,
And
then like
it's not even that I dislike it. I just kind of don't. I feel like it just doesn't. It's just out of place for me. But I'm sure there's people that might disagree with that. But it doesn't really fit the record for me.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's still that doesn't discount it,
no,
like
not
you
at
said
all.
about the
It's their best record in my opinion. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's if I skip a song and it's still their best record, that just shows how quality the other tracks are. But
Yeah.
anyways, the Willingwell's absolutely epic. I'm gonna say that a million times. But songs like Crossing the Frame and 10 Speed are also amazing songs.
10 Speed's on my top.
Everything on this record is good. So what top three? What is it? What's
My
your
top three, mine are Welcome Home, The Final Cut, and 10 Speed. the three that I narrowed it down to. It was like insanely difficult to.
Yeah.
That it was actually like most of the albums I listened through them, placed them on my kind of my top 10 spot, and then like I was able to pick my three favorite tracks and like jotted down some notes and then moved on. But this one was like I know where I'm putting it already, but like I'm leaving my favorite tracks blank and I'm going to have to listen to it again to like pick these three, and it was so hard to do. So
Yeah. No,
begrudgingly those were my three.
yeah. So I'm not gonna put it in an order of like 1, 2, and 3. I don't think we've necessarily been.
Yeah,
doing
mine.
that, right?
I just picked
Yeah.
three.
So Willingwell 1, Willingwell 2, Willingwell 3.
There you go.
Yeah.
I thought you were
Fuel
going to
for
go
the
cheat
Feeding End.
codes and just say the Willingwells is one.
I
All
didn't know
three
that-
are one.
I didn't know I had that cheat code at my disposal. If that's the case,
Well,
all
that's
of
why
the-
it's a cheat code.
all of the Willingwells plus. No, I'm not going to cheat. Willingwell 1, Willingwell 2, Willingwell 3. So Fuel for the Feeding End, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness, and Apollo 2, The Telling Truth. I used to
Solid.
listen to Apollo 2, The Telling Truth as like my pump up song whenever I was playing baseball.
Nice.
So that used to I just love that song. That song is probably the most underrated Willingwell. But yeah, fantastic. Fantastic suite of songs, fantastic record. Yeah, that's probably a good place to leave that
Yeah.
one and move on to No World for Tomorrow. Taylor Hawkins on the drums. We have our first sort of shift in as far as lineup goes. But there is a different sound on this record. I don't attribute it to that.
No, yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with that per
No.
se. I think they definitely on this one went for like a southern rock aesthetic. Like there seems to be for their albums they kind of have like an inspiration or like a theme that they go for at the time, and this one seems very like southern, like classic rocky. And this one, like there are a lot of good songs on here, but this is an album for me. I think it just like I enjoy, numerous tracks on it, but overall the album just doesn't click for me. And I know it seems to be like the unpopular opinion because people seem to regard this one like pretty high on most lists, but for me it's lower on mine. I think I had it at like 7 or 8. Um,
So, what I will say about this record is it has one of the most epic openings of any Coheed record.
yeah, I would agree with that for
The
sure.
reaping with like the hell must know, like that whole like lead, and then it just drops into No World with that epic sort of intro guitar.
Yeah.
And but like for the most part, I mean, you get a little bit of on Gravemakers and Gunslingers, you get a little bit of like a southern rock vibe almost, not a
Yeah.
lot, but like a little bit, and then that's kind of like a it's not really a full theme of the record itself, but like that's kind of the first time you hear that type of sound, in my opinion, from Coheed. I feel like Travis maybe put his stamp on this record a lot because I kind of associate that type of stuff with him and like his guitar style. But then you have songs like Mother Superior, which is just one of their best, in my opinion, like slower songs. I
Yeah.
love the little like guitar riff. I play it frequently when I pick up my guitar. I think my wife probably hates it because of that. But I think that song's very underrated. When Josh came back to the band and they did like it was like I feel like they did a acoustic set in like a shoe store or something. Um, and that version they do a version of Mother Superior in that like little acoustic set that they did.
That's cool.
That is one of my favorite versions of that song, and I think that's really what made me like that song.
That actually is one of the top 3 songs that I
Yeah,
picked.
it would be mine. It would be in my top three as well. But yeah, overall, I do agree to an extent that this song is kind of one of their or this not this song this record is one of their weaker records, but that's not to say that it's a weak record. That's just to say that their body of work is so
Yeah, yeah, that's
I
for
hold
sure.
so many of their records in such high regard that this one just didn't click as much for me. I could totally see this record clicking with other people um, for different reasons. Especially, I mean, honestly, No World for Tomorrow, the title track, the Reaping into No World Tomorrow, might be one of the best openings of all of their records. I mean, obviously, leading into In Keeping Secrets is just such an epic track, but really, it drops you right into this record. So,
Yeah, this one does like
but
come swinging right out of the gates.
yeah, but songs like "The Hound of Blood and Rank," which is a good song, it almost kind of suffers from coming after a song like "No World for Tomorrow" and just how like just sort of not technical, but just the guitar is very heavy and
Yeah.
not heavy either. But I don't know. It's an interesting change to go from that into like the Hound of Blood and Rank starts with like do 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 like it's just like oh what, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just making shit up at this point, but uh it's still a good song. Feathers, I never really got into. It's one of their popular songs. That was one of the singles from this record. They made a video on it. The video was entertaining. I did like the video. The woman's putting everyone in a meat grinder. Like that's and it's not that I don't like the song. It just never fully like I never grasped. I just didn't connect with it. The Running Free was another one of the singles. I also didn't. I really didn't connect with the Running Free. Um,
Yeah, that one that was on an NHL,
it was, yeah,
and I remember, and I was like excited seeing like, wow,
yeah,
there's Coheed on here, and then like listening to the song, and I was like, hmm.
yeah.
It's like I feel like they could have picked a better one.
No World would have been cool.
Yeah,
Gravemakers probably would have made the most sense on like a video game. I don't know, but
yeah,
um,
I yeah this, like you had said before, is like it being lower on my list still doesn't mean like that it's a bad album.
right,
It's just like the quality level for
yeah.
Coheed is so high that like even their worst album for me is like a 6 out of 10
That's the thing.
probably.
That's the thing with Coheed is other bands that have this wide of a discography. will put out records where I'll listen to the whole record, and this is just me speaking personally, but I'll listen to the whole record and I won't put a single song off of that record into a top 10% of their discography, or some I'm probably not going to listen to anything off of that record, maybe one song. And even then it's kind of like, do I even really care to listen to it? With Coheed, I feel like they consistently put a song on every record, at least one song that I feel like is a top 10%
Yeah,
Coheed
I
song.
feel like if you were making your own, like, here's the Coheed Essential playlist, like you would probably have at least a song from each of their
Absolutely.
albums.
At least probably multiple. But yeah,
Yeah.
at least one. From this record, I would probably put No World, Mother Superior, maybe Gravemakers as well, because I do really enjoy that song. Um, I like On the Brink, aside from the like, I know some people like the Hail times 57. Have you ever seen that meme? Or times 58? Maybe it's 58 hails, where like there's an interlude, not an interlude, but like a part of the song where they're just like Hail, 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 and it goes on. I think they do it like 50 something times. Uh, I don't like that. And I don't know if people actually like that whenever they make those jokes, or they're making the jokes because they don't like it. But I personally think I don't like it in the song. I think it kind of, and I'm speaking from a musical perspective. I don't know how, what impact that is, or what that is representing as far as the story goes.
Yeah.
Whether or not that makes sense conceptually for that song, I don't know the answer to that. But just speaking strictly from a music perspective, I don't like that. And that kind of ruins the song for me a bit.
Yeah, there's like a certain repetitive nature that's like expected in music. You have like the chorus, obviously, that you come back to, and the different verses and stuff. But there's a point for me where I'm like, okay, this has been repeated too many times. I'm about to skip the song. Like, so
Right.
yeah, when you have some repeated 50 something times, like, all right, time to move on now. Different word, please.
But I do like that On the Brink kind of brings back, and I might be wrong. Again, I took no notes for this. On the Brink, I'm pretty sure brings back the final cut, like the sort of the ending of the final cut, and how like the like do 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 do, like it brings that like sort of theme
Yeah.
back. I do like that. I'm pretty sure it's On the Brink that does that. So I do enjoy any callback to like a previous song, always gets me hyped. So,
Yeah, those are always
um,
cool.
but yeah, overall, I agree. I agree with your assessment that this is one of their weaker records overall. But
It's funny because I was like kind of surprised. Like when I built the list, I was like, "Oh, Dan's gonna be pissed when he hears where that I ranked No More for Tomorrow so low." Because I
it's
know,
still good. It's still so like that's the other thing, is I don't want people to hear me say that's one of their weaker records, and it's not their weakest. It's not,
yeah,
it's not. I would put at least 3 records below this one. I would.
yeah. Well, that's why I figured that it was
Yeah.
like, oh, whenever I have my list, is like, oh, we're gonna have a heated debate here. But
We still might, but it's not going to
yeah,
be on this one.
yeah, it might be for a different reason.
Yeah. Um but anyways, we're going to move on to arguably their most controversial record. Arguably, because there's one other one that I could see argument for.
Yeah,
But You're the Black Rainbow. So this record, they took on sort of a new approach. They went and got what is Atticus Ross, the dude from Nine Inch Nails, I think, to sort of do the production on this record, and I think it is overproduced and horribly mastered, and I think that really really does a disservice to songs that I think are kind of diamonds in the rough. A lot of these songs I think you talked about how Second Stage, you wish that they would remix or remaster, re-record those tracks.
yeah,
I think the record that would benefit the most from them doing that is this record, because songs like Far, songs like Shattered Symphony, World of Lines, honestly, one leading into The Broken is a decent intro too, but like songs like When Skeletons Live, like I just don't. I mean, I've seen people say that that's their favorite Coheed song, and that is literally like in the gutter for me. And not to be
No pun
confused with
intended.
the fact that they have a song called The Gutter, which is a million times better than this track. And I just don't like some of the vocals just sound off. Some of the mix sounds off. I just maybe it would benefit. Maybe like hearing it through a different, with a different mix, I would change my mind.
Yeah,
But man,
this album is very like muddy sounding
yeah,
almost
it just
like
and just the what they tried to do with the synths and the effects and stuff, I just feel like fell on its face.
yeah, like there are definitely I really like Here We Are Juggernaut and Pearl of the Stars too. Like it's Pearl of the Stars is just like a nice like kind of softer acousticy song. It's
Yeah,
like kind of a cool like different
it is a
sound and I really like that and Far also which you mentioned already.
yeah
Like
for
there
a
are a bunch
while.
of good songs on here, but yeah, I agree that I do think this one for sure would like second stage was still like number 4 for me. So it's very high up there.
Yeah,
Whereas this one's like this is the my number 10. Like
it's
it's
your
the
least favorite.
yeah.
See,
And I think if they did like this actually for me might be better than No World for Tomorrow if they did
if
like
they
a
like remixed it
re-record
or remastered
remix
it, yeah,
because the number of songs that I like on this.
yeah.
But there is stuff that's like I feel like I'd like this song if it didn't sound muddy.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just they got too ambitious or what, but I can't put this as my least favorite Coheed record just because I do hold songs like Far and World of Lines, Pearl of the Stars, as in relative like high regard.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I think every Coheed record they put at least one song, normally multiple songs, honestly probably multiple songs that are
And
in
this
that
album, they
like
actually put a song called One.
that is true. That is true. I feel like they put multiple songs on each record that are in like the upper echelon of Coheed tracks. If you look at their discography sort of as a collection of songs, I
Yeah.
feel like there's always at least one song that's in that like top like 10-15%.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
it's hard.
even
They have so many songs. So if you're like, top 10% is probably like the top 20 Coheed songs. And I mean, I do feel that way. I think Far or World of Lines have a chance for me personally to be like in that top. In that top.
yeah, it's funny just like looking at the Spotify stats for this album. Like, Here We Are Juggernaut has almost 6 million plays as of now. And then there are actually, I've said earlier about like every song has more than a million. On this record, there are several that don't.
Yeah, it's definitely
So,
it's not a hot take to say that people
yeah,
don't generally enjoy this record. And I do think that it's because of the mix. I don't think it's the
yeah,
music. I genuinely think that if they took a different approach to this record, and I mean, it was a weird time for the band too. I know, like, Chris Penny was on drums, so they didn't have Josh Eppard. Chris Penny is a freak on drums, so let's not like discredit him. But
yeah.
I don't think he was a fit for what the band was doing. But I think they maybe tried. They knew his caliber, his sort of prestige as a drummer, and they maybe tried to focus on that when they wrote this record. Because there are a lot of very good. I think there are drum parts on this record that I'm not going to say Josh can't play them because he's very, very talented. He could probably play them, but I think it would be difficult for him to play a lot of these songs in a live setting on the drums. He could do it. I don't want to say that he can't. He definitely could. But I do think they made him a focal point, and then they got very experimental. And I don't mind bands doing that, but it wasn't experimental with the songwriting. It was more with like effects and like the mix. And
Yeah.
I think, like I said before, I think that really sort of didn't lend well to the music.
Yeah, and it's funny because like reading the book is like I really enjoyed the book, but then it's like so immediately after like finishing the book, I'm like, oh, I want to listen to the album now, so see like how much I can understand and stuff. And I was just like, as I was listening through it, I'm like, ah,
Yeah,
it's such a bummer. And like even like the album artwork's cool too,
yeah,
and stuff. It's like I really want to to
yeah.
like
And
it,
the
and I
like
feel
the
like
whole
I
concept of it is cool. Everything about the story part of it is cool. I just I would love for them to remix and remaster that record.
Yeah.
That's kind of my plea. Is
I
like
would
just,
I would chip into like a
yeah,
Kickstarter,
let's get like a
GoFundMe
GoFundMe going to get that to happen.
to like pay for
Honestly,
them
there's
to like re-record.
with how many I feel like how many Coheed fans sort of agree with that opinion. There's probably one out there or was one out there at one point.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, yeah. So again, not their strongest effort from like all around, but again, the band was kind of in a weird place, and I don't necessarily attribute that situation to sort of how the music turned out. But I don't know. Basically, I would love to see, with Mick Todd going through what he was going through, a new drummer, you lose your bass player in the middle of touring for this record, and I don't, who knows what, Michael Todd, what he was going through during the writing of this record. I think the bass playing is very good on this record, so I'm sure it didn't attribute to anything. But anyways, rough record, but
Yeah.
still not the worst record out there, and honestly still not my least favorite Coheed record. But moving on, because we still have freaking 5 records to go through. Are we at like 2 hours? I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry for how long this is, but
Strap in.
There's a lot of stuff to go through. We'll try to move it along a little bit. Afterman Ascension is the next record that comes out. The Afterman dual records were released like I think like just a few months apart. One was released in like November or October or something, and then the next one was released in like January, February. So it was like rapid fire.
Yeah, and then they have like the combo
Right,
too that you
yeah,
can
they
find, like the
released
deluxe edition.
Yep. But this is with Josh Eppard back and Zach Cooper on bass. So now we have now we're at the current version of Coheed. This is the first record for that. Domino was the single and Afterman was the other single. There might have been another one, but those are the two that I remember. I think The Hollow is very cool as an intro, leading into Domino. I'm not as high on Domino the Destitute as a lot of people are.
I really like the song. It's actually it's one of my 3 favorite of the album.
It is one of my favorites on the record. But for me, this record is another one of their weaker records for me personally.
Oh, really?
I don't vibe. The Afterman's cool, but it sounds like some Modest Mouse shit. Not that I'm anti Modest Mouse. That made it sound like I don't like. But like I don't know. It sounded like a ripoff of a Modest Mouse song a little bit. The Key Entity Extractions, the whole suite, like the first 4 are on this record. I don't like Hollywood the Cracked. I don't like that song.
Oh, really?
That much. To say I don't like it, it's not fair. It's not one of my favorite Coheed songs on this record or in general. Vic the Butcher and Evagria the Faithful, I think, are the strongest of the Key Entity Extractions on this record, and I know that's probably not a popular opinion because I know a lot of people, Domino's like their favorite song, period. I don't know. I'm weird with like chanty stuff that's not like crowd chanted, like the weird like in Domino where it goes to the boxing thing and it's like he's out I don't know, it's like talking like that whole ramp up thing. It kind of like takes away from the song for me personally. I don't like stuff like that in music that much,
like the soundbite things.
Yeah. So that's honestly the only reason I move that any lower. It's still like a upper 50% Coheed song for me, but I don't know.
Yeah, this is like we're getting back to like, all right, we're back on track here, like from their previous album.
And even like Domino was the single, and I remember like I pre-ordered the record on iTunes because I heard a snippet of that song and I was like, oh, they're coming back. It's going to be, and I remember laying in my bed in college at like midnight when it dropped, listening to it. And I did like, while I didn't vibe with parts of it, I was still in my head like, this is so much better than Year of the Black Rainbow. Like, I'm so happy that it sounds this way. Even with Afterman, I was like, I like this more than most of the things on Year of the Black Rainbow. And then the entire record, I felt like was a step in the right direction from Year of the Black Rainbow, but I still was like, it's just not solid enough for me to feel like they're coming the whole way back. So that's how I felt about this record. That's why it's not super high on my list, But Vic the Butcher, Domino the Destitute, and Evagria the Faithful, three of the four key entity extractions, for me, are the strongest tracks on the record. And I still listen to them in rotation. Those would be in my sort of Coheed Essentials playlist. As we said,
Yeah.
every album has at least one song that would go in there. I would, it's more than just me picking my three favorite tracks on the record. I would put all three of those songs into a sort of essentials
Yeah.
playlist. But even songs like "Goodnight Fair Lady" have a nice vibe. "Subtraction" almost sounds more like a Prize Fighter Inferno song. But
It does sound very prize fighter.
it's still good.
Yeah. Yeah. This was like a good return to form for me. I enjoyed this. And I know, like, initially I had on my list, I was like back and forth with Ascension and Descension, like putting them on like which one goes where. And initially I had Ascension higher than Descension, but I think I have went with
You
the
made the right
flip there.
choice. Yeah, because
I do enjoy a lot of songs though. Like I really like Domino, the Afterman, Mothers of
yeah,
Men, and Vic the Butcher as well. Vic the Butcher would be like my, I guess, like honorable mention if we're like doing
yeah.
three.
I feel like looking at, so we'll just switch right to Dissension, and we can go back to Ascension if we want to. Just since these were kind of released real
Yeah, I can
close
kind of
together.
like treat them as one.
Looking at Dissension, whenever I heard Century the Defiant, and it wasn't released in its real form first. It was released. Claudio had like a GoPro strapped to the end of his acoustic guitar, and he was playing it on his acoustic guitar. And it was when I heard that, even though it's not the final version, when I heard that, that was my moment where I was like, Coheed's back.
Yeah,
So it wasn't anything on Ascension that made me fully feel that way. I felt, okay, they're heading in the right direction. But it was when I heard him playing Sentry on his acoustic guitar, I was like, that's what I like about Coheed. And then I heard Gravity's Union, and I was like, holy shit.
yeah,
I was like, that's what I want. These are the types of songs that I like. The proggier, like longer songs with the tempo changes and the style changes and all the cool shit that I love about Coheed. All the stuff I loved about the Willing Wells, about the Valerium Camper Suites, and like all the Godsend Conspirators, like that 2113, like all these songs that I hold in such high regard. I felt like Gravity's Union sort of scratched that itch for me. And I was
yeah,
like, finally, we're doing this again.
yeah. That's the Century, the Defiant, Gravity's Union are two of my top
Yeah.
three.
Granted, they did that in Year of the Black Rainbow in those finishing tracks, like the Suite of Song is at the end. But that record for me just wasn't done well enough for those to like make me feel good about it. So, but anyways, yeah. So Gravity's Union, so good. Hard Sell, also another great song on that record.
Yeah, that was like my like fourth like honorable mention. Like when I was putting the tracks, I kind of went through and was like, this feels like it'd be a contender on this list. And then when I got to the end, I was like, I've got like five or six on here, and I had to like whittle them down.
Yeah.
And the hard sell was like the one that like I guess I got to take this one off if I'm
Yeah.
making three.
And honestly, from sort of their like lovier, slower songs, like from that sort of lens, two is my favorite one. Might be my favorite one of the Love Protocol. I really like too.
Yeah, Love
But
Protocol's
like
awesome.
between those two, like the hold on to me, like I love that chorus so much. Like that song is fantastic. Dark Side of Me was kind of their attempt to go to write another sort of mainstream rock song, in my opinion. I think it had kind of that sound and appeal, but it was still good.
Yeah.
I think they played it on like Jimmy Fallon or something, or one of those.
Oh really?
Yeah. But it's still a good song. So basically, as a collection of songs, in my opinion, Dissension holds up better for me personally than Ascension. It's the
Yeah.
better of the two. As a collective, I think it's a very good body of work. The Afterman dual records, that was a good sort of, not reinvention, but sort of a return to form from kind of the back-to-back records, No World for Tomorrow and Year of the Black Rainbow. Not that No World for Tomorrow was bad. Year of the Black Rainbow, kind of, they really fell off. I felt like those two records are kind of weaker. As a collective, Afterman I think holds up better for me personally.
Yeah.
Even though I would probably put Ascension below No World for Tomorrow
Oh, really?
if you look at them separate, yeah. Um, but yeah, Afterman Dissension is probably my preferred of the two and a top 5 or 6 Coheed record. There's just too many good records.
Yeah, they're Ascension and Dissension are like real close for me on the list. Just like, I mean, I feel like since they came out so close together, they were written close together, and
Yeah, they were
that
probably. I think they were written at the same time.
and they just split it into
I think
two.
some of the first songs they wrote were actually on Dissension.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's so it seemed like because they had similar sound and they were written at a similar time, they probably had similar inspirations and stuff. So they're very like similar in that regard. So that's why like for me they kind of fall, neck and neck on my list.
yep,
And so I put them at 6 and 7, with Descension being 6 and then Ascension being
nice.
7.
Yeah. I'll read down my order after we're done.
Yeah, I'll reread through mine too, but
But next record, because we're trying to move a little quicker. I don't even know what the capacity for, can we post a 3-hour episode? Anyways, so The Color Before the Sun. This was the first record they dropped not in the concept. The only record that they've dropped not in the concept.
yeah.
They've released songs that aren't concept songs, like the song for Arkham Knight or whatever, the Batman game that they released.
No, I didn't even know.
That's called, what the hell is that called? Wow, my brain. But regardless, and then like Jesse's Girl 2, they released that song with Rick Springfield, which that was a very interesting situation. Why can't it starts with a D? What the hell is Deranged? Wow, my brain was struggling. I got there. Deranged is the song that they released for that Batman Arkham Knight
I
video
don't know
game.
if I've heard that one
Yeah,
actually.
it's pretty good actually. And then yeah, Jesse's Girl 2. But yeah, this is the first full record like under the Coheed and Cambria moniker that was not in the concept. I think Claudio joked at one point and was like, "This is the music that they listen to in
Yeah,
Heaven's
to try
Fence or
and
whatever."
tie,
Yeah,
trying to tie it in.
but yeah, for me, this is a very like poppy Coheed record. This whole, not the whole thing. There are some, like the audience and there are some songs that aren't fully in that pop vein, but
Definitely the majority of these songs are
yeah,
poppy
like
though.
Island, Eraser, Colors, Here to Mars. My wife and I actually walked out, not like it was kind of our introduction song during our wedding, whenever we came out like into, introducing for the first time, blah, 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 like
Yeah.
into the reception hall. Here to Mars was the song that was playing when we walked out. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But poppy and lovey.
I really like that song.
Atlas is a very cool song. It's cool that he wrote a song for his son. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, most of the Vaxis storyline I think is very much rooted in, being a parent, and Atlas is definitely has a big presence, in the songwriting for those records. But it was cool to sort of have just "this is for you" kind of thing. And I know
Yeah.
the audience he wrote for the fan base. Obviously, it sounds like that would make sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, it is a nice record. I do enjoy some pop Coheed enough to appreciate this record, but as a collective, it just doesn't have what I like about Coheed, which is like the sort of the front to back sort of adventure you go on when you listen to a record, how songs flow into one another, the callbacks to other songs, the themes, whatever. Like, I like the concept, both not necessarily like lyrically, I don't even care that much. Like, I like how they sort of get conceptual with the songwriting, in the sense of you have those callbacks and you have specific themes throughout a record, and like
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And this record kind of lacks that for me, which is, I think, again, every Coheed record, in my opinion, is a great record. But, if I had to pick a least favorite, unfortunately, I think it would be this one, just because it's missing those things that I like about Coheed and Cambria.
Yeah, that's, I think a fair assessment of it. I personally, I do like this album. Like, it's because it's poppy, it's just like, I don't know, it just has kind of like a feel good vibe to it. And um, it just kind of ends up being an album that I actually play pretty, like, pretty regularly. I mean, I guess not front to back, but there are a lot of songs on here that I like listening to. And like my wife really likes a lot of songs from here too. So it's one
Yeah,
that we just
this
kind of
is
listen to together a lot.
yeah.
So I think that's why it ends up being a little higher on my list. I mean, it's still, I put it at number 8. So it's not
Right.
like the top of my list, but I do very much enjoy it.
I think sort of this collection of songs is it's probably some of their most accessible music.
Yeah.
Like I feel like Island, Here to Mars, even like Eraser, You Got Spirit Kid, Peace to the Mountain. A lot of these songs are very accessible to people who may be intimidated by the whole concept thing, or maybe intimidated by the 8 minute long prog rock opera type songs, that they do, the Willing Wells and some of the new songs. Window of the Waking Mind is like that. The Gutter gives you sort of that vibe off of Vaxis One. So I mean, I think this record's more easily digestible in that regard, but also just from a music perspective, it's very accessible um, for people who may be intimidated by things like that, I think.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not intimidated by that, so it's not
Yeah.
so it's not super high up there for me, but I again, like we said, there's always a song or two or three or however many that would sort of be in the upper echelon. And Peace to the Mountain for me, I really enjoy. I love sort of the horn section type orchestra type section part of it at the end that sort of leads you out, sort of the outro of the record.
Yeah.
I really like that. Like I said, Here to Mars, my wife and I walked out to, I wouldn't have picked that song if I was like, this record is trash.
Yeah.
So, Island is a powerful track.
I like You Got Spirit Kid
You Got
too.
Spirit Kid.
It's fun. It's a fun
It is a
song.
fun song. I'll give you that. When that was released as the single, I was like, oh man, I don't think I'm gonna like this record, and I liked it more than I thought I would. I think The Audience is probably the song that tickles the prog itch as much as this record can. Um, but it's not like my favorite track on the record. I actually prefer Island. I prefer Here to Mars. I prefer Peace to the Mountain. I prefer Atlas. I think that's a great song. Young Love might be my least favorite, but it's still not bad. So I mean, it's still good music. It's just
Yeah.
overall it doesn't work for me as well as some of their other stuff.
Yeah, and I get that like it doesn't have the concept either from like the story
Yeah, like
standpoint or like you said where it doesn't have like the Easter eggs of like other songs and like
that's kind of
callbacks and stuff.
that's what I miss the most. It's not as much the concept from a lyrical perspective because to be honest with you, especially early on, I didn't know anything about the story. I didn't know
Yeah.
what the lyrics were about. Half the time I wasn't even listening to the lyrics. I'm not typically a person who connects more with lyrics, typically more with lyrics than with like the music. Um but I do like sort of the thing that a lot of people in concept records do, which is like reoccurring themes and stuff like that sort of play into sort of the concept part of the writing.
Yeah.
Um, Typically, like from a lyrical perspective, like that also factors in, but um, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what I miss on that record, so that's why it's like as low as it is for me. But um, I know some people who love it, so and it was nice to get like maybe it was probably nice for them and sort of therapeutic, not therapeutic, probably therapeutic in a way, to sort of just take a step back before like coming back in. But for me, that was like another Year of the Black Rainbow esque situation where I was like, oh, they're falling off. And then I heard the single for Vaxis One, The
Dun
Unheavenly
dun
Creatures.
dun.
And when I heard The Dark Sentencer, I was like, holy shit. are we gonna have like some kind of weird like borderline metal type record from Coheed and Cambria? Is that gonna happen? Like, I feel like I probably would have felt the same way if Ladders of Supremacy was the single for Vaxis II.
Yeah.
I would have been like,
Oh my
oh, this is
god.
gonna be so crazy. I'm proggy and heavy and amazing. Then the second single for Unheavenly Creatures dropped, and it was Unheavenly Creatures. And I was like, this is like a dance number. What the hell is going on here? So, not that I didn't like it. I just need to keep making that clear. But yeah, when I heard Dark Sentencer for the first time, I was like, they're back. And you would watch a lot of sort of reaction videos on YouTube and stuff. I say you. I would watch. And I feel like a lot of people were in the same sort of headspace about like hearing that, oh, the boys are back, they're back. And I even like I went to a contortionist show and I had VIP tickets or whatever, and I know that Cam, the guitarist for the contortionist, I had read somewhere or saw an interview with him where he was like Coheed was one of his biggest inspirations, and one of his most inspirational records was In Keeping Secrets. Like that was one of the things that like he takes the most inspiration from when he's writing and all this stuff. So I actually like during the Q&A I asked I was like, have you heard the new Coheed song? And he was like, the boys are back, or so. I think that's literally what he said during like that interview. So I just felt like that was a consensus, especially among people, the Contortionist is a prog metal band. Among people who were like prog leaning and just like heavier music leaning, that was a song that sort of sparked, lit a spark again when it came to like Coheed and Cambria's music.
Yeah, it is a fantastic album. Like it kind of just it's crazy the like echelon of albums that they've put out, and I know like The Color Before the Sun is kind of generally regarded like lower from Coheed stuff, but just like having them come out with the Afterman stuff, and then like some people love Color Before the Sun and some don't,
Right.
and then going into Vaxis One, and now like it seems generally also like Vaxis Two people are pretty
Right.
keen
Yeah.
on too. So it's like, just how do they keep putting out such good albums?
And yeah,
And
I
this
mean
is,
that's really like I said already, bands that have this big of a catalog, they typically have one record, two records that I personally could be like I could do without that record entirely. I would say the closest one in their discography for me that I would say that about would be Color Before the Sun, but I walked out to hear them. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah,
like these are songs that I don't want to go away. So it's like, and with Year of the Black Rainbow, Far, World of Lions, all these songs that we talked about already, but there's not one record that Coheed's put out where I was like, I, throw the whole thing in the garbage.
yeah,
You know
like
what I mean?
none of them are good. Yeah,
Right.
they've got
So,
something awesome on everyone, but this is one too that I was like, I don't know, the more recent albums, like, oh, it's so hard to pick just like three songs. And I know it's just like an arbitrary like
right.
thing that I gave myself, but I was like, I got to narrow it down. I can't just list every single track off the album as
Yeah.
my
I mean,
favorites.
probably there are a lot on this record that there's a lot of songs on this record that I don't really connect with. Um Unheavenly Creatures is one of them, even though I know that's like a very popular track. Uh Toys I didn't super connect with. Black Sunday, Queen of the Dark's okay. True Ugly I didn't super connect with. Love Protocol, I said this earlier, is one of my favorite of their like slower, lovier songs. Like I
Yeah, that
love
song
that
is
song.
awesome.
Um
It comes
and
on Colleen, like whenever we're driving, like we
yeah.
commute into work, and we'll put on her daily mix. And now there's like a lot of Coheed on there, and Love Protocol always. It's like for some reason it comes on every time we play her like daily mix. So
Yeah. Or
it's
like
been a heavy
they're like
rotation
hold
song
on to
lately.
me. Like I just freaking love that chorus so much. Um and I'm 90% sure. Hopefully, whenever I semi sang that chorus earlier, I was still talking about Love Protocol and not Two is my favorite one. Um, but both of those songs are like my favorite, like slower, lovier Coheed songs. The Pavilion I know is a very like emotional song for Claudio because it's talking sort of about when he thought about hanging it up, like calling it quits with music. But I feel that emotion when I watch the music video more than when I listen to the song. Um, but I still like it. But the Gutter, I'm skipping Nighttime Walkers because that song's okay too. But again, it's not super great. The Gutter is another like top 5% Coheed song. Like that
Yeah,
that
it's
song,
an awesome one.
you get sort of Black Parade, like My Chem vibes a little bit, like with some of the guitar stuff, and then
Yeah,
but you get like Queen vibes. Like I get a lot of in that song, like, and it's proggy, it's long, it's got really cool like tempo changes, style changes. Again, these are things that I love in prog music, and that has it. Just yeah, overall that song between that and Dark Sentencer is my favorite song on this record, and both of those songs deserve to be sort of in the top like 5-10% of all Coheed tracks. All on Fire is another great song. I feel like that one is kind of buried often. Um, as far as like, I feel like I don't see people talk about that song enough. I see a lot of people talk about The Gutter, and a lot of people talk about Unheavenly Creatures and Old Flames, and all
yeah,
the
Old Flames is
poppier
really good too.
songs, and then like obviously the big two, Dark Sentencer and The Gutter, as far as like the heavy-ish, prog-ish style songs. Um, but All on Fire, I feel like doesn't get enough credit. I think that's kind of the hidden gem of this record.
Yeah, that's a good track too. Yeah, it's there are so many on this
Yeah,
one that are just
but while I
hit.
while I feel like I don't connect with this record like a lot, I think the standout songs are just so strong that it boosts the overall record quality for me. In the sense, like I couldn't put this record below You're the Black Rainbow because it has at least three songs on it that are better than everything on that record.
Yeah,
So it's like hard for me to be like, you know, everything else on this record's kind of in the middle ish for me. But Dark Sentencer, The Gutter, and All on Fire for me are like up there. And honestly, Love Protocol is up there too. So it's a very
yeah,
it's not necessarily for me like overall. There's 15 tracks on this record, and I very much connect with like four or five, and then everything else is kind of just like somewhere in the middle, uh, or like middle bottom. Honestly, some of it, because I don't really vibe with the dance stuff. The not the dance stuff, but like the poppier, like the na 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 na. Like I don't really I never really got into
don't
that.
like the catchy.
Yeah, but it's cool live. To be honest, like it's cool. Like
Yeah,
anything that involves like crowd participation and people get into, I think it's cool live, and I always get a new perspective on songs when I see them live. Like I did not like the Deer Hunter for the longest time. I just couldn't get into their music. The only record that I vibed with was Act 3 because it had some semi heavy ish songs. And then I saw the Deer Hunter live and something just clicked in my brain. And I was like, this is freaking awesome. And then all of a sudden I started liking the Deer Hunter. So it's weird. Like sometimes it takes that. Like honestly, for Vaxis II, whenever we go see them here in a month, less than a month,
yeah,
um, I think there are some songs that I'm hoping to hear live because I just want to see if it clicks with me. Uh, but yeah, I mean there are some songs like a lot of the poppier Coheed songs that didn't vibe with that much. I kind of gained a new perspective whenever I saw those songs played live. And just
yeah.
because
That's
then you start to think about like the crowd, like you think about those moments. It like takes you like to a different, like it transports you.
yeah. That's and we'll kind of get into it in the next album here, but like the audience participation stuff is like just picturing some of the songs being played live, and I can like see it being a cool song being played live and stuff. So I'm excited to see them
But
for the first time.
Liars Club, you feel like that's gonna be
Yeah,
like,
Liars Club like
or
will
like I
be
feel like Comatose could be one too, where like people kind of get into. I could see them like cutting the mic whenever people are like fucking keep me comatose. Like I
yeah.
could see like that being a thing. Um, I think it would be so cool, at least for like one show, and it doesn't have to be the one that I'm at. Although I would prefer it. I think it would be so cool if, because I know Atlas sometimes comes on tour with them, right?
Oh, that's cool.
So I think it would be really cool if even not on stage, like keep him in the side, like keep him on the side if he doesn't want to. And again, I'm not telling, hey, force your kid to do this, but I think it would be really cool if because it's his voice in Embers of Fire for Vaxis II, which I guess
Yeah.
let's just switch and start talking about that. Vaxis I, awesome record, like a handful of very big standout tracks, and then everything else for me is in the middle. But those standout tracks kind of really propel it up for me. That's how I feel about that.
Yeah.
But do you have any other final thoughts about Vaxis One?
Yeah, I've kind of similarly, like there are some like beacon tracks on here that are
Yeah.
like just insanely good, and then there are other ones that are like I enjoy them, but they're not like ones that are heavily
Yeah,
rotated.
it's not in an essentials Coheed.
Yeah, but
for
they-
us or yeah,
But the ones that are like
or
high up
yeah,
there,
like the Gutter and Dark Sensor for me are just
yeah,
I love those songs. But anyways, back to Atlas. So I think it would be really cool for this tour because I think it would make sense for like Embers of Fire to sort of be their intro, like to the band coming out, and then
Yeah.
whether they go into Beautiful Losers or if they go into
Old Flames.
Old Flames, like either way, like I think that sounds like the most like logical way to start the set for this upcoming tour. I think it would be really cool if they got Atlas to do his little vocal part where he like just sings like "We all go up in flames," like whether it's in the middle of the stage or on the side of the stage or in a balcony or in a back room. I don't give a shit. I think it would be really cool.
That would be cool if he
I
actually
just
did
think
it.
that would be yeah.
Like to get him in like involved is like kind of like it's like take your kid to work day.
Yeah, you're a rock star now, kid. He's on a
Yeah.
He's got more songs on Spotify than we do.
Yeah.
So, I think that would be really cool to see.
That would be cool.
But again, I'm not thinking that it might happen at one show. Maybe he'll do it in like New York or something. Like that
Or
would
like
be,
close
it would
to
be
home.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know that he goes to shows. Him and Chandra are often in like balcony seats and stuff. Like I see her posting live videos and stuff, and Atlas with his little noise canceling headset headphones on. And,
Yeah.
But yeah, shout out to Chandra, ear protection. My wife works in ENT. She would be very very happy to see that you're making sure to protect that hearing. But yeah, so I think that would be cool. But anyways, Vaxis II. This is going to be kind of our album review here for this, and it kind of fits. So we might we might go one song at a time a little bit, but I know we're freaking probably crazy of time right now. So Embers of Fire, really cool little intro. It's a cool callback to Old Flames. It's cool that he involves Atlas. Leading into Beautiful Losers, I think it works really well. I like the little
It does work really
almost
well.
like the like My Chem sort of like I only say My Chem because they're who I think of that I know has done this before, where it's almost like someone turned the volume way down and like where it's like and then it like all of a sudden drops into the next song. That kind of happens between Embers of Fire and Beautiful Losers. I think that's pretty cool. And Beautiful Losers is honestly a pretty strong song.
Yeah, it's honestly like the flow of this album. I feel like it does like a good kind of like mix of stuff, and like the track placement is really good.
It's pretty spot on. I agree. And they do a lot of weird things on this. Not weird is kind of maybe a harsh sounding word. They do a lot of different like experimentation on this record, which Claudio warned us about. He said this is going to test the fan base, and it does to a degree, but not really with those first two tracks. Beautiful Losers sounds like a Coheed song to me. I mean, obviously it is. They're all Coheed songs, but it sounds like true to form Coheed. Where then it drops into Coma. Honestly, back to Beautiful Losers because it gives like a pop punk vibe at times, doesn't it?
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah,
Like it sounds like something that I don't know. Like
I can't really like put my finger on like what
I
band
was
that
like,
it
there
would
was a
sound
band in
like.
my. I had a band in my head when my first listen through. I'm like 14 listens through this record at this point.
Yeah, I'm probably
and
somewhere around there too.
Yeah, and but yeah, I think it has like a pop punk ish vibe to it, and then it drops into Comatose, which I've heard people say, "Oh, this doesn't sound like Coheed," but there are other Coheed songs in their discography that sound kind of like Comatose.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, I definitely agree with they experimented more and like added a lot of that like 80s synthy sound to the album, but I don't really think anything sounds like not Coheed to
See,
me. Like, I mean, they definitely like branched out and like changed stuff up, but like, there's no song on here that if you played for me, I would mistake it for a different
that's just
band.
because of Claudio. I don't know.
Yeah,
If
I guess that's
Claudio
true.
wasn't the vocalist, I feel like I would disagree with that. Just in the sense of like songs like Bad Man and um Love Murder 1 is I don't a disappearing act is definitely another one that should be on that list. Um those are some of their more experimental tracks on this record, the ones that sort of differentiate from most, if not all, of their prior work.
Yeah, those are the ones that's like dive a little more heavy into the like the 80s synthy
Yeah, like
stuff. So that I can see that argument that those ones are like
yeah,
enough to be like, oh, that's not Coheed, but
like Comatose even gives me like Blood Red Summer ish like vibes a little bit. It sounds a lot like maybe even that like Jesse's Girl 2 track like has some elements from that. You know, some of their poppier stuff, but you know, Shoulders gives you that sort of southern synthy rock style that you get some vibes of on No World for Tomorrow.
yeah, that's what I was
So
thinking too. Is like that feels like a No World for Tomorrow
right.
song.
So I don't look at that song as like, oh, they're getting way different from what they've been doing. And then a disappearing act comes on and you're like, this is different. But a lot of people, it's like their favorite track on the record from what I've been seeing. I mean, I've seen people put this, I think if I'm remembering correctly, in like the entries for the giveaway, which we're gonna announce after we're done doing this review. Um, I think some people even had it in there. Maybe they didn't understand the question, but they had it in there as like their favorite Coheed song, and that would blow my mind because I don't think it even is the best song on this record. But it's different, but it's for some reason maybe it's just because this record came out around the time Stranger Things has been out, and a lot of these songs give me like in Stranger Things everything's sort of that like synthy stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I get like Journey vibes from some of the songs on this record. Like some of the choruses, I feel like could have been like a Journey track.
Well,
Like
that makes sense with the 80s
right, and it's that
flair
80
to
like
it.
synth rock sound. Like and, and
Yeah.
and I don't think I would have liked it as much if I wasn't actively watching Stranger Things. And like when this record came out, I was actively watching Stranger Things, and that version of the Journey song, what the hell is it?
The
Like
remix
separate
version
is
that
it
they do
separate
in
ways or is that the name of the song? But yeah, like that remix version, I like get real hyped on that. That's one of my favorite Journeys. I love Journey too. My wife hates it, so I don't listen to it very much. But that's like one of the biggest band. Like my dad introduced me to Journey, and so like I just kind of flash back to like my childhood listening to like Journey and the
yeah.
Eagles and stuff like that. But there are certain choruses on this record that really give me Journey vibes. And for some reason I feel like a disappearing act is like the biggest one that reminds me of that. Um,
Yeah, I was actually
maybe Love Murder one, maybe.
yeah, it's funny because the songs that are like the most different, I've seen a lot of people posting on like the Facebook groups for Coheed Cambria saying that those are like their favorite tracks off of this
Yeah,
new album. So it's like, they say like, "Oh, we're testing the fan base." And like, I mean, they definitely did, but it seems like generally speaking most people are
yeah,
are digging it.
yeah,
And maybe it's just like kind of that cyclical thing of like, stuff comes back around again. Like 80s music is becoming popular again. And, maybe large in part due to Stranger Things. But I
yeah,
mean, regardless, I mean, The Weekend is doing the,
yeah.
the 80s sound. And like there's, was it Bad Man, I think is the
Yeah,
one
Bad
that,
Man is the one that I feel like gets a lot of comparisons to The Weeknd and like
yeah.
the things that he's been doing with his music. I can see it. Uh, but yeah, I think everything sort of still stays in that Coheed vein, like you said. I do think if Claudio wasn't the vocalist, it wouldn't be as easy to know, like, oh, that's Coheed and Cambria. But um, I like the way the record flows, honestly, and I think while, like I said, I don't think I would have necessarily enjoyed it as much if I wasn't for some reason in this weird '80s like synth rock like mentality from watching Stranger Things that I was just like, oh, this is like like some of these songs I feel like could have been on that on that like not score but like on the soundtrack for Stranger Things
Yeah,
season 4.
that'd be pretty sick combining those.
Yeah, but then so like Blood is kind of like a forgettable track for me. Liars Club, I agree. I think it'll be fun live.
Yeah,
But
I'm excited to see it.
yeah, Bad Man, like we said, very similar to like in that '80s synth wave vein, and then also in the like the Weekend vein. Like I get those comparisons. This is a song I want to talk about for like just a hot second. Our Love. For me, I see a lot of people like, oh, this is gonna be my like first dance song and my wedding song. I feel like this song is like if somebody, you know, in a pinch was like, I need a wedding song. It's like, here, let me slap something together for you. Like, I don't like it. I think it's like
Oh, really?
I would never pick this as my wedding song just because I don't know. I don't think it's all that good. It's almost like someone like gun to your head. I need a wedding song. Like, and it needs to be Coheed-ish. And like, I don't know. I don't. It's honestly probably like written for Chandra maybe, but he has so many songs that are written for Chandra, so maybe it's not. But so hopefully it's not. I'm not trying to shit on a song that he wrote for his wife. I mean, it's it's pretty enough. There's some like cute lines, like. But it's just for the most part, I just don't. I think it's like it's almost like the fan base has always been looking for a song to have their first dance to that wasn't secretly about like murdering your wife or
Yeah,
like like just stuff like I Wake Up is beautiful until it's not, right? And
yeah,
2 is my favorite. 1 is a beautiful song, but it's like a little too upbeat to be like a first dance song, right? So I feel like the fan base has always been looking for something like this. Um, I don't want to say that's why it was written because I'm sure conceptually it's something important, but yeah, I don't know. It's weak for me.
yeah. For me, like it's probably one of the weaker tracks on this album, but honestly, like I've been just playing this album from front to back through repeatedly,
Yeah, I
and
haven't skipped it, but I will in the future. That's kind of like I haven't skipped it because I've been like trying to just fully grasp the record. But this is a song that, similar to how on Good Apollo 1 I skip Always and Never, like
yeah,
this is kind of in that vein for me. Like it almost doesn't fit between Bad Man and then dropping into such an epic song like
yeah.
Ladders of Supremacy.
Oh my god, Letters of Supremacy.
Something I want to say about this record. The final 3 tracks, Ladders of Supremacy, Rise, Nyanasha, Cut the Cord, and Window of the Waking Mind, are like in Willing Well territory with like ending a record. In my opinion, like those are like the best 3 closing tracks since Good Apollo 1. And Ladders of Supremacy is like top. I haven't like fully like thought this through, so don't hold me to this like statement because it's hard for me to but right now it's like top 10 top 15 Coheed songs ever for me.
Yeah,
And I what pissed me off, not pissed me off, but I saw somebody like refer to it as like great value Domino or something like that, and I was like, Domino is already great value. Like, no, that's rude to say, it's not. um but compared to this song, like this song, really honestly, I would put all 3 of these songs ahead of Domino.
yeah. Ladders of Supremacy is like it might honestly be my top 5 of
Wow.
Coheed songs. Like it's so good,
I like
I can't stop
I
listening
want
to
to
it.
put it that high. I really do, but I still feel like it's like, okay, they haven't. I mean, the last record, Dark Sentencer and The Gutter, very, very strong tracks. But I was like, it's probably just because they haven't put a song this good out in a long time. And that's probably why I'm holding it in such regard, because then you look back and it's like, is it better than the Willing Well suite? Probably not. Is it better than In Keeping Secrets, like the title track? Probably not. God Send Conspirator, such a good song. There's just so many good songs that
Yeah,
it's
I'd
it's
have to
tough to
like
like you'd re I'd
actually look at the
yeah.
list to like.
But it's so good. It's one of the best songs they've released since Good Apollo 1, and honestly, like I said, the last 3 tracks of this record, the way they flow into one another, the way Window of the Waking Mind brings back the theme, which seems to be like sort of the overarching theme maybe of, I don't know if it's going to be the overarching theme of Vaxis, the story as a whole across the 5 records that we're going to get in this storyline, or maybe just of like the first 2 tracks, but that Old Flames sort of theme. They bring it back again at the end of Window of the Waking Mind. Window of the Waking Mind plays like a prog opera almost.
Yeah, it does.
Um, it's very much it's a Deer Hunter song. That's like how I felt about it. It honestly sounds like a Deer Hunter track. Like if that was on any of the acts from Deer Hunter, I would be like, that makes sense. Like that's what it reminded me
Yeah,
of the
it
most.
does have like a heavier deer, like kind of like the
Yeah,
heavier tier Deer Hunter
yeah,
song.
but yeah, overall, I mean, this record, had very little hope, if I'm being honest. Um, the singles didn't do much for me. Shoulders didn't do much for. Shoulders was okay. Um, I heard the first time I heard it was Claudio did his little Twitch stream, and so he played. It was dropping at midnight, and he played it for everybody at like 11:30 or something. So I heard it like I was like, oh, I got to hear this song. I got to hear what direction he's testing the fan base. I need to see what happens. Um, and when I heard that song, I was like, well, I'm not hearing anything very, I'm not feeling tested by this track, right? Like,
Yeah.
we've heard similar sounds in No World, like we said. It almost has that like grave diggers and gunslingers ish vibe. Um, but then Liars Club and Comatose, for me, I was like, if the whole record sounds like this, I don't know how much I'm going to like it. And it leaked, this record, and I did not listen to the leak. I wanted to so many times, and I was literally like ready to click like download, and just kept talking myself out of it because I was like, I want to experience it like when it drops, like higher quality than the it was like in 128 or something. It was like lower quality, the
Oh
leak,
yeah.
and so I did resist, but I saw a lot of people posting, and it was mixed, right? Some people were like, "This is the worst shit. What are they doing?" Like, but then I saw everybody like, "Yeah, it's not great, but ladders though," or like, "Yeah, it's not great, but like the Window of the Waking Mind, the title track," and Rise Nigh Nasha was one of the singles as well, and that had enough prog flavor in it that I was like, it's not going to be a total wash.
Yeah.
Um, so I listened to the whole record on my drive to the beach. That was the first time I listened to it. That's not true. The first time I listened to the record was midnight when it dropped, laying in bed. But I obviously was very tired and didn't fully grasp it. But when I heard Ladders, like my eyes were like, "Oh shit!" like,
Yeah. Yeah,
they're really
that's
doing this. Like I honestly got like some of the things they were doing, especially in that intro, um, gave me like prog metal, like it's like something I would see Between the Buried and Me do in one of their songs. Obviously not like as heavy, but like Between the Buried and Me has songs where they'll shift into some different section where it's, some weird shit's going on, and there's like a little bit of like I could have seen some of that style on like Colors 2.
yeah. Yeah, it does feel like you could kind of get some of that between the buried and me or like
Just
similar.
prog metal ish,
Yeah.
Haken, like things like that. Um, but yeah, the last 3 tracks on this record are fantastic. If I had to pick 3, it would be those. Pretty easy. If I had to add an honorable mention, it would be Beautiful Losers. I do like that. And the one other thing I wanted to say about this record too is I feel like with all the layers and stuff, like I feel like they really, this is almost like maybe some of the stuff they wanted to do on Year of the Black Rainbow with the experimentation and like the different styles, the different effects, all that stuff. I know some people don't like that, but I feel like it was done well on this record where, on Year of the Black Rainbow it sort of deterred from the quality. I feel like maybe it almost made every song sound bigger, like more of a production, more of a like I don't know, like the different orchestra sounding synths and the different
Yeah.
like it made every and like all honestly the vocal layering really made every track feel bigger.
Yeah, it's this album just as a whole felt epic.
Yeah.
Like it really plays into the whole like epic space fantasy type thing
Yep.
that Coheed is going for, and that's what I think. Like the '80s stuff, and I mean I just enjoy the '80s synthwave sound, but it does give like lens to that like spacey sci-fi stuff. So I don't know. This album to me, like whether or not the like actual lore of the album versus like reading the book that accompanied the box and stuff, whether or not it's I guess as a good of lore as like the
Right.
previous stuff, it did feel like the most like getting me in there, like
Yeah.
I'm in here now in this sci-fi
Yep.
space fantasy and stuff. So I think that's why I'm just enjoying it so much right
Yeah.
now.
Absolutely. Um all right, we're gonna put a pin in it now. I mean, we could. It's been probably close to freaking 3 hours at this point. I don't even know. I feel like I've been in this room forever. Um, but yeah, we love Coheed and Cambria. This new record is fantastic. All of their you know entire discography. It's just. I mean, there's a reason why after what we said 17 to 20 years or whatever, like we're still
Yeah, we've
talking
been
about this band for us personally. And I know a lot of people feel the same way. Some people have been around since the Shibuti days, and we're not quite old enough to fully have appreciated the Shibuti days. But I do love the music from Shibuti. So, it's definitely a band that I think since, we've been around this long, uh, we're probably lifers. So,
yeah.
um, but just to go down my list, and then you can go down your list too, just of kind of our rankings. Even though nobody asked for this, but we were just curious, to be honest, and it changes all the time for me, especially like the top two flip for me often.
Yeah.
Um, but my list today, and I'm actually switching one as I do this. Um, I have Good Apollo 1 first. I have In Keeping Secrets second, Second Stage third. I'm going to actually put Vaxis 2 fourth,
Oh wow.
Vaxis 1 fifth, Dissension sixth, No World for Tomorrow seventh, Ascension eighth, Year of the Black Rainbow ninth, and Color Before the Sun 10th. That's my ratings right now. And they will
Okay.
change.
Yeah.
I also fought very hard between like Vaxis 2, Vaxis 1, and Dissension, sort of in that middle section, because they all three of those records have such strong songs. Gravity's Union and Hard Cell and Century for Dissension. Vaxis 2, obviously, those last three tracks, and then Vaxis 1 with the Dark Sentencer and the Gutter. It's just that was tough for me to come up with. So
Yeah.
those three will definitely change in the top, like my 1 and 2. In Keeping Secrets sometimes is 1 for me. So, but that's my list for right now.
Mine, so I'll go from top to bottom, I guess. Number one, Good Apollo. Number two, Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3. Number three is Vaxis 2, Window of the Waking Mind. Number four is Second Stage Turbine Blade. Five is Vaxis 1. Six is Afterman Descension. Seven is Ascension. Eight is Color Before the Sun. Nine is No World for Tomorrow. And 10 is Year of the Black Rainbow.
Nice.
Yeah, I think after we both made changes, our lists
Yeah,
end
they're
up being a lot
decently
more
close.
similar than they were
Yeah.
initially.
Yeah, I honestly I hold Dissension in pretty high regard, so like putting the two Vaxis records ahead of it, um because I do view Dissension as sort of Coheed's return to form before they sort of went back to Color Before the Sun. Um but yeah, I mean the two Vaxis records are really good, and it makes me happy as a Coheed fan to know that like they're still putting out really good music,
Yeah.
even though some people won't necessarily agree. But if you have a song like Ladders and Rise and Window of the Waking Mind, that should tickle anybody who's like a prog fan, like that should tickle their itch. And then obviously a plethora of pop songs,
Yeah, you've
and then
got
just like your straight line Coheed songs. I mean, Beautiful Losers and Shoulders to me, honestly, are just straight line and I would honestly say Comatose is pretty like poppy Coheed.
yeah.
Like that doesn't really deter from like their norm. So yeah. But yeah, anyways, so let us know what you agree with, what you disagree with. Tell us how wrong we are, all of that stuff. That's fine. This is obviously just two guys' opinions, but we absolutely love Coheed. I can't wait to see them live again for the 20-something time. We
Me
both
for the first time.
Yeah, you for the first. Honestly, I'm probably more excited for you to witness them live for the first time than I am to see them for the 20-something time. But we also got the prize VIP. So,
Yeah, what if it's
or no, whatever the main Mage is. Mage the main one. We got the biggest one.
yeah, I can't remember if it was
The
prize
ones
or
with the
mage.
meet
Which
and greet.
ones?
Yeah, I think it's Mage. I think Mage is that sounds higher. Yeah, we're gonna go with Mage. But yeah, looking forward to that. Always cool. I think that'll be like my 6th or 7th time doing that. So try to get something signed and all that fun stuff. But anyways, the other thing, and for everybody who just scrolled to hear who the winner of the contest was, hi, thank you for joining us. We'd love it if you scroll backwards a little bit and
listen to some
listen
of
to
it at least.
some of our ramblings. But moment of truth, drum roll, whatever. We're not going to actually put a drum roll sound in here. Yeah, it might just be obnoxious. So I think we had like almost 200 entries. Like we had a good number of entries.
Yeah, it was definitely heavy on the Instagram.
Yeah.
There were a few on the Twitter, and I think I noticed some of the majority of the ones that we got from Twitter were also people from Instagram, and
Right.
so I think they just went over to Twitter to like get more entries.
Yep, definitely, which is fine.
Which is yeah, it's awesome.
That's
I mean,
what we were trying to encourage.
Yeah.
But moment of truth, the winner is Stephanie Murray.
Stephanie Murray, come on down.
We will reach out to you, Stephanie, on Instagram in the next couple days. If you didn't, just to make sure too that because not necessarily everybody's going to even listen to this. But we'll be reaching out to the winner, but we're going to give it a couple days. I want people to sweat a little bit. But yes, congratulations, Stephanie. Just for everybody who didn't win, thank you for entering, and we will be doing more giveaways. We're going to try to do it like maybe quarterly, somewhere in there. Obviously, we are giving things away from our personal collections. So,
yeah, so it's hard to give them away because they have, sentimental value and obviously also like monetary value too. So it is from our personal collection, predominantly Dan's.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's fine though. I'm happy to give. I have so much Coheed stuff.
Yeah.
So not every giveaway can be Coheed related either, because then that'll just get old. We're not technically a Coheed podcast, although they are involved in every episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, so definitely, it's worthwhile to stay following us, and also whenever you enter these contests, make sure you're following us, because if we pull your name and you're not following us, we move on to the next one. So, that actually did not happen in this, although I did see some folks who, liked the post and commented on the post and weren't actually following us. So for future reference, make sure you're following us for the next giveaway. I got some contortionist stuff that I might be willing to part with. I've got some Deer Hunter stuff that maybe, although the first giveaway we did was Deer Hunter, we might want to switch it up. I got a Delta Sleep poster that I'd be willing to part with. I got like some slip mats from different bands, Intervals, Pliny.
Yeah, make sure to tune in for more giveaways.
I got signed CDs, signed vinyl. I got all kinds of stuff. So you never know. So yeah, definitely keep following us. It's worthwhile. Please check out our content. Like, follow, subscribe, all of those fun things. Rate. We would love 5 stars, but whatever you give us is fine. We understand. We're not perfect.
Yeah, we appreciate any feedback and stuff, whatever we can do to make the podcast better. So, please, if you don't give us a 5, let us know what we can do to make it better. So
Absolutely. And we know this is a freaking crazy long, but you guys voted for this. So, technically, it's your fault. But,
Blame
but,
the audience.
but regardless, thank you so much for the people who actually stick it out and listen to this or listen to any parts of this, even if it's just to see if they won the free stuff. So, thank you so much for the time. Hopefully you enjoyed it, got something out of it, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks.